This boy was in the schoolyard practicing the newly learned boxing technique. However, it made a top-tier martial artist who was watching in secret tremble with excitement. With each punch he threw, the explosive sound of 9 thunderclaps echoed through the air. Even the academy's brightest genius, after hours of intense training, could barely manage 3 thunderclaps, which is the basic standard. However, only half a day had elapsed since the technique was introduced. He had already mastered it to perfection. It turns out he was selected by the gods and had awakened the martial arts system. By allowing his avatar to guide his training within his mindscape, he can master any martial art to perfection in a remarkably short time. Defeating enemies also awards martial points. Spending these points boosts his vitality and physical abilities. Now, let's discover how this individual became the martial god. 2 students were engaged in a sparring match. One punch landed with force, and the student who received it exclaimed that it hurt like hell. He chuckled, observing that Su Hong's Vajra fist had clearly improved once more. He pondered whether Su Hong had already reached the micro level. Su Hong remained calm and explained that he had only just achieved a breakthrough to the micro level 2 days prior. In this world, martial arts are categorized into distinct ranks: basic, proficient, micro-level, mastered, and perfect. Achieving the micro-level places an individual significantly ahead of most of their peers. The other student couldn't help but admire him, remarking that when it came to the Vajra fist, no one else in their class could compare. He then inquired whether Su Hong had finished resting so they could resume their practice. However, the pain from that single punch still stung, and he had no intention of taking another hit. Calling Su Hong a cultivation maniac, he waved him off and said he was heading home to eat. Before leaving the training hall, he courteously bid farewell to Teacher Li. Teacher Li reminded him to tidy his clothes before heading out. The teacher then turned to Su Hong and halted him, inquiring why he had not yet paid the 30,000 registration fee for the martial arts department. He reminded Su Hong that applications would close next month. Su Hong paused briefly before inquiring if he could have a few more days. Teacher Li sighed, acknowledging Su Hong's family situation. However, he emphasized that rules were rules, and there was nothing he could do to alter them. Once everyone else had departed, Su Hong remained and continued practicing alone. No matter how often he practiced his forms, one thought kept circling in his mind: the $30,000 registration fee. His memories drifted back to the past. When he was 3 years old, his parents had died in a disaster caused by ferocious beasts. Since then, he had lived with his uncle and aunt, who, after discovering his talent for martial arts, did everything they could to support his training. In a time when fierce beasts roamed freely, becoming a martial artist was the most lucrative way to earn a living. He had trained diligently to provide them with a better life. Yet at that moment, it seemed he was only making things more difficult for them. Later, he returned to a secluded part of the city, arriving at the small, dilapidated apartment he referred to as home. Inside, his aunt gently inquired if the rent was nearly due and how much money they still needed. His uncle suggested that the rent could wait, emphasizing that little Hong's registration fee should be prioritized. His aunt concurred, noting that with such talent, Su Hong was destined for success, and they couldn't afford to hinder his progress. She then casually mentioned that she would stop taking her medicine since it wasn't helping her anyway, and quitting would save them money. His uncle quickly objected, saying he would just take on another job instead. He insisted she stay home, rest properly, and focus on her health, reassuring her that everything else would fall into place. Listening from the shadows, Su Hong felt a tight ache in his chest as a wave of sadness washed over him. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was a foolish, chaotic world that had warped his life into something unrecognizable. Everywhere he turned, he saw greed. Even those who merely wanted to register for something they excelled at had to pay for it, money he had no talent for earning. If he had truly been skilled at making money, he likely wouldn't have had any talent for martial arts. The more he pondered this, the crazier the world appeared. Setting aside his dark thoughts, he opened the door and announced his return. His aunt, who treated him like her own son, immediately began to fuss over him, asking why he had practiced so late and insisting that he must be exhausted. Su Hong attempted to take over the chores, assuring her that he would handle them, but she dismissed him. She insisted it was nothing and urged him to rest so he wouldn't be tired the next day. His uncle supported her, advising him to listen and go to bed promptly. Su Hong returned to his room, but sleep eluded him. He lay there, wide awake, his thoughts racing in circles. His uncle and aunt had already made so many sacrifices for him. He couldn't allow that to continue. This time, he would tackle his own problem. For a martial artist to earn tens of thousands in just a few days, there was only one place that came to mind. The following day, a loud announcement resonated through the streets. The crowd was welcomed to the Martial Apprentice Arena Challenge, where only victory or defeat mattered, regardless of life or death. It was the underground martial arena, and the announcer's voice surged with excitement as she introduced the day's ring defender, a fighter known as Mr. Minotaur. The rules were straightforward. If he could win 4 consecutive matches, he would take home $60,000 in prize money. Otherwise, he would leave empty-handed. The crowd was instructed to watch closely. The audience quickly broke into whispers. No one seemed to recognize him. Some speculated he was a rookie, while others scoffed, claiming that a newcomer diving straight into the arena challenge was essentially inviting disaster. The announcer leaned in and whispered to the boy, urging him to show some passion and energize the atmosphere. The boy, looking puzzled, asked how he was supposed to do that. The announcer sighed and suggested he provoke the crowd or curse a bit, muttering that this was precisely why rookies were such a headache. The Minotaur suddenly realized his strength. With a fierce roar, he declared that beneath the level of a formal martial artist, he was invincible, daring all weaklings to come and face him. The crowd erupted simultaneously. Some cursed him for his outrageous arrogance, while others laughed and admired his bravery. The atmosphere quickly intensified. A voice in the crowd sneered that he wouldn't even realize how he met his end later. That was just a spark that ignited the excitement. Cheers erupted from all around. Some people shouted their approval, others called for blood, and a few hurled insults at the so-called Minotaur. With the atmosphere reaching its peak, the announcer declared the match officially underway. Beneath the Minotaur mask, Su Hong remained composed. He could sense the intense killing intent characteristic of the underground arena. However, this was the quickest way to raise the tuition money he needed. If he could secure a few victories with his Vajra fist, it would be worthwhile. His first opponent stepped forward, calling him an arrogant brat and claiming he would toy with him for a while. Su Hong paid little attention, his eyes calmly assessing the man. The opponent exuded strong momentum, yet his footing was unsteady. It appeared that victory would not be difficult to achieve. Noticing him zone out, the opponent cursed and charged in with a punch. Su Hong deftly sidestepped it and then casually swung his other hand. The punch connected solidly with the man's jaw, propelling him backward to where he had originated. The announcer quickly lost her composure. She was already beginning to admire the masked fighter, even joking to herself that she might want to ask him out later. Laughing into the microphone, she exclaimed that Minotaur had secured his first win. The crowd erupted with enthusiastic shouts and cheers. A second challenger stepped forward, dismissing the previous contestant's defeat as mere bad luck, insisting that this time would be different. Su Hong casually replied with a simple, "Please," all while calmly assessing his opponent. Judging by his physique, the guy seemed to possess decent strength, making him an ideal candidate to test the true power of Su Hong's Vajra fist. The man shouted and lunged forward with a powerful punch, but Su Hong confronted the attack head-on. With a single Vajra fist strike, he shattered the oncoming force. The opponent gasped in disbelief at the force of the blow. Su Hong could already sense the difference. This guy was strong, but still not as strong as him. After executing a single counterattack, the opponent had over-relied on his upper body strength, leaving his waist exposed. Su Hong delivered a powerful kick, sending the man flying off the stage, just like the first. The arena erupted in chaos, some cursed in disbelief, while others shouted in awe of his incredible strength. Next, the announcer exclaimed, announcing that Minotaur had secured 2 consecutive victories. The cheers intensified, reaching a nearly deafening volume. In a quieter corner, a few well-dressed spectators observed intently. One of them remarked that the kid wasn't even a quasi-martial artist, yet his strength far exceeded the average. There was no doubt about it, this one was exceptional. The announcer's voice echoed once more, announcing Minotaur's 3rd consecutive victory. In the viewing area, one of the men remarked that the kid was better than the worst, but far from the best. He noted that someone like him was ideal for match fixing. A masked young man spoke up from behind him, offering to take care of it. The older man cautioned him not to disclose that he had already reached the martial artist level. After accumulating numerous victories, Su Hong grew more confident. Ordinary martial apprentices no longer posed much of a challenge for him. With his Vajra fist at the micro level, winning one more match would secure him the complete prize money of 60,000. At that moment, the crowd erupted in excitement. People began shouting that White Fox was actually entering the ring. As soon as the masked fighter emerged, the arena erupted in excitement. Some declared that White Fox was a quasi-martial artist, while others argued that having a quasi-martial artist compete against a martial apprentice was essentially unfair. Su Hong's heart sank slightly. A quasi-martial artist? This match was going to be challenging. However, backing down was not an option. He couldn't afford to lose now. White Fox halted before him, observing him with a calm demeanor before speaking. He reassured Su Hong not to be afraid, asserting that he knew how to control his strength. The announcer's voice interrupted once more, announcing the final match of the arena challenge and calling for the fight to commence. Both fighters surged forward at full speed. Su Hong quickly recognized the disparity in their levels. With his cultivation being lower, he had no option but to give everything he had in his opening move. His punch surged forward, creating visible shockwaves that rippled through the air. The impact reverberated through the ring as both fighters showcased their formidable strength. The moment their fists collided, Su Hong's heart skipped a beat. He sensed something was off. His opponent wasn't a quasi-martial artist. He was a genuine martial artist who had intentionally suppressed his vitality. A wave of tension washed over Su Hong. He had never anticipated a monster like this would emerge so suddenly. White Fox inhaled sharply and launched another attack, executing the Thunder Rush Fist. Each strike came in rapid succession, with each blow landing harder than the one before. Under the relentless assault, Su Hong was pushed back, pain radiating throughout his body. So this was the power of a true martial artist. The crowd was stunned. Someone recognized the technique and shouted that it was the 3-Echo Thunder Rush Fist. No one had anticipated seeing such a move here, and the surprise alone made the ticket price worthwhile. Others shook their heads, convinced that the Minotaur was finished. To them, the outcome seemed already clear. Despite his relentless attacks, White Fox showed no signs of stopping, pressing his advantage without mercy. Eventually, he appeared to grow bored and told Minotaur that merely defending was futile. He urged him to fight back, expressing a desire to see the true extent of his strength. For the moment, Minotaur could only defend himself. Despite his efforts, each punch pierced through his defenses, sending waves of pain with every blow. He realized that if this continued, defeat was inevitable. He needed an opportunity to counterattack, but White Fox's strikes were too swift and relentless, leaving no openings whatsoever. Then White Fox discovered an opportunity for himself, a punch aimed directly at the Minotaur's jaw. The impact sent him flying, and he crashed heavily to the ground. Lying there, his vision blurred as his awareness began to slip away. Before he could recover, White Fox stepped forward and spoke calmly. He informed Su Hong that he wouldn't receive a single coin of the prize money from this match, but his teacher was willing to extend an invitation to him. If Minotaur agreed to fix matches for them in the future, They would pay him the equivalent of the prize money from this match. Despite White Fox's foot pressing down on his face, Minotaur refused without hesitation, stating he would never engage in something so shameless. White Fox was momentarily surprised. He hadn't anticipated such a strong rejection. Once he regained his composure, he cautioned him to think carefully, stating that turning them down would come at a cost he couldn't afford. Minotaur retorted, questioning whether those who engaged in such behavior truly deserved to call themselves martial artists. That was sufficient. White Fox stated that there was nothing more to discuss. As he turned to leave, he coldly remarked that since Minotaur refused to cooperate, he had no choice but to cripple him, ensuring that all he could do in the future was dream of being a martial artist. As White Fox prepared to strike his leg, those words echoed in Minotaur's mind, sharp and piercing: "Become a martial artist." A surge of instinct surged within him. He twisted away just in time, narrowly avoiding the blow. He couldn't afford to be crippled. Forcing himself back up, the Minotaur re-entered the fight. White Fox watched in astonishment as Minotaur steadied himself, his eyes blazing with determination. He couldn't fall here, not in this place. Something snapped within him, and a surge of renewed energy coursed through his weary body. White Fox couldn't conceal his shock. He had clearly landed a Thunder Rush fist earlier, yet somehow this guy was still on his feet. Yet deep down, Su Hong remained painfully clear-headed. He aspired to become a martial artist and couldn't let the sacrifices his uncle and aunt had made over the years go to waste. He wanted to provide them with a better life. But did that truly mean he had to forsake everything a martial artist was meant to uphold? The answer came almost immediately: no. That kind of future was something he would never accept. At that moment, something unusual occurred. A status window abruptly appeared before his eyes. Cold, emotionless words floated across the screen, inquiring what he was willing to sacrifice for his future and his faith. Su Hong didn't hesitate. His eyes burned with fierce determination as he answered, fully confident in his willingness to give up everything. The system inquired again if he was genuinely prepared to pay the price. The Minotaur provided the same response as before: everything. The instant the word left his lips, something profound within him started to shift. His shadow twisted and elongated, morphing into the silhouette of a terrifying monster. Su Hong was taken aback. He had no idea where he was, and the shadow looming behind him belonged to a colossal, unfamiliar creature. Before he could ask anything, the imposing presence spoke, offering him this opportunity. A peculiar aura enveloped Su Hong. A status window appeared, displaying all his details. Su Hong stared in disbelief. It showcased every one of his attributes. Acting on impulse, he tapped the section for missions. A notification for a random mission appeared: Way of the Arena. To defeat White Fox, he needed to elevate his Vajra Fist to the mastered level and refine his Floating Light Palm and Void Step to micro level. This was a daunting challenge considering his current low proficiency, but it was essential to unlock the beginner's guide. Su Hong was taken aback by the unexpected news, but before he could react, a fist came flying directly at his face. Su Hong instinctively ducked. When he looked up and froze, before him stood a flawless clone. The replica moved with impeccable form, executing a level of Vajra Fist that surpassed his own. Each move was executed with precision and adherence to standard techniques. With such a perfect example before him, he couldn't let the opportunity pass by. As he traded blows with the clone, he understood that this was more than just a fight. It was a lesson. Halfway through, he realized that his proficiency in Vajra Fist had significantly increased. It jumped from 7% to 10% in just moments. The improvement was astonishingly quick. This was the trick. This place enabled him to quickly enhance his martial arts skills. He continued to fight, learning and refining his technique with each encounter. His proficiency steadily increased until it ultimately reached 100%. His Floating Light Palm achieved full mastery, propelling the clone away. He then mastered his Void Step. At last, the Vajra fist has been perfected. Exhaustion finally caught up with him. Breathing heavily, Su Hong nodded into the empty air. Thanks a lot. The system congratulated him on successfully completing the mission. Su Hong accepted the rewards and promptly chose to return to reality. In an instant, he found himself back in the arena, donning the Minotaur mask and facing White Fox. White Fox sneered and unleashed another series of thunderous punches. The blows were fierce, but Minotaur calmly observed that they were too slow. He effortlessly dodged every strike. Before White Fox could respond, Su Hong's fist struck his face. The mask shattered, and White Fox fell to the ground. The crowd stood frozen, gazing in disbelief. Minotaur calmly requested his prize money for winning the fourth match. The astonished announcer struggled to find the right words before ultimately declaring Minotaur the winner of the $60,000 grand prize. The teacher frowned from the audience. It was impossible for a mere apprentice to master the Vajra fist. Suspicious, he instructed his men to track Minotaur and uncover his true identity. Exiting the arena, Su Hong felt as though someone was trailing him. He sprang into action, his speed surging as he disappeared from their view. The pursuers halted in confusion, unable to locate him. Concealed securely, Su Hong scoffed at their awkward attempt. An hour later, he came back home. His aunt and uncle were amazed by the substantial pile of money. His uncle inquired whether he had robbed a bank. Su Hong clarified that he worked as a sparring partner and that the dojo master had chosen to sponsor his studies. The uncle inquired whether it was the stingy dojo, but Su Hong merely urged them to trust him. Noticing his serious expression, they smiled. His uncle affirmed that little Hong would never lie, and they celebrated his promising future. That night, Su Hong ascended to the roof. Beneath the moonlight, he contemplated his situation. He had settled the exam fees, rent, and medical expenses. A laugh of relief escaped him. He examined the system interface and realized he had survived due to this mysterious power. He noticed a statistic labeled martial value. A notification indicated that he earned 57 martial value points for defeating a higher-level opponent. These points could be used to enhance his vitality and skills. Su Hong tried it right away. When he allocated points to vitality, a surge of scorching energy erupted within him. His vitality reached 90, which was already on par with that of a quasi-martial artist. He allocated the remaining points to vitality. His body felt lighter, stronger, and more vibrant. Su Hong clenched his fists. Even though his wounds had healed, he felt a surge of power coursing through him. He felt a strong desire to test his newfound strength. He jumped across the rooftops toward the combat power tester at the school's drill ground. He arrived at Star City No. 1 High School shortly thereafter. The area was quiet with a solitary Tier 1 combat power tester positioned nearby. Su Hong focused his energy but chose to restrain himself, utilizing only 70% of his strength. His fist hit the machine with a sharp impact. For a brief moment, the punch felt remarkably heavy. Suddenly, the tester sparked and stopped working. Stunned, he feared he would have to pay for the faulty machine and decided to leave. A voice called out from behind, asking who was there. Su Hong took off without providing an explanation. A furious caretaker hurried to the damaged machine, cursing the vandal. He assumed it was the usual troublemakers, Chun Shan and Li Duo, and vowed to set them straight when school began. The gymnasium at Star City No. 1 High School was bustling with activity. Students filled every corner of the room while Su Hong stood quietly among them. As he waited, he overheard someone mention that Chun Shan had been beaten up. This piqued his interest, prompting him to ask for details about what had occurred. A nearby student explained that Chun Shan had broken the combat power tester in the middle of the night, but refused to take responsibility. As a result, the principal punished him on the spot. Su Hong felt a bit uncomfortable upon hearing this. Someone else had taken the blame for his mistake. At the same time, he felt relieved. If he had been caught, he could never have afforded to pay for that machine. Before he could contemplate it further, the announcer's voice resonated through the hall, urging everyone to be quiet. He introduced a special guest, a Tier 3 martial artist named Chun Tien. who was there to teach them a key-cranked martial art called the Thunder Rush Fist. He instructed the students to pay close attention. The gym quickly filled with noise. Some students exclaimed that it was their first time seeing a Tier 3 martial artist in person, while others discussed how crank martial arts typically cost a fortune to learn at outside dojos. The moment Su Hong heard the name, his eyes lit up. Thunder Rush Fist. It was the same technique White Fox had employed in the underground arena. One punch delivered the impact of 3, and its power was undeniable. Outside of school, the registration fee for learning something like this would be substantial. He couldn't afford to miss this opportunity. Chun Tian skipped the small talk and informed the students that he would demonstrate the technique 10 times from beginning to end. Their level of understanding would depend entirely on their own efforts. He stepped forward, assumed his stance, and began. With a shout of Thunder Rush Fist, he delivered a powerful punch. The impact was immense, and the sound of thunder echoed throughout the gym. As he demonstrated, he explained the different levels. At the basic level, a punch produces 1 thunderclap. At the proficient level, it generates 3 sounds, and at the micro level, it creates 5. At the master level, he produced 7 sounds, which was his current skill level. As he completed the move, 7 loud thunderclaps resonated, causing the air to vibrate. After expending so much energy, Chun Tian paused to catch his breath. He mentioned that at the perfect realm, one could produce 9 thunderous sounds. However, he advised them not to set their sights too high. Mastering the basics today would be sufficient. After a brief break, Chun Tian announced the second demonstration and encouraged everyone to try to follow along. The gym quickly filled with students shouting awkward battle cries as they attempted to mimic his movements. Hours flew by. One by one, students began to collapse from exhaustion. Some expressed frustration at not understanding the material, while others groaned about feeling completely drained. A few determined individuals continued to practice, inquiring if anyone had discovered the trick, despite their bodies giving out. One of Su Hong's friends wiped his brow and sighed, remarking that C-crank martial arts were simply too difficult to master. As he looked around, he noticed that Su Hong was missing. For a moment, he questioned whether Su Hong had already figured it out. But then he simply wondered where he had gone. At that moment, excited laughter erupted nearby. Someone proudly declared that he had reached the basic level. The friend turned to see Chun Shan beaming with satisfaction. A surge of jealousy washed over him. It was no surprise everyone referred to Chun Shan as a genius. How was he so talented? The principal swiftly stepped forward, introducing Chun Shan as the school's top genius, and asked Chun Chen if he wanted to train with him. Students gathered around, calling Chun Shan a true prodigy. However, Chun Chen appeared unimpressed. He casually remarked that this hardly qualified as genius. In other cities, such talent was merely average. Later, the group stepped outside to continue their conversation. Chun Tian expressed to the principal his disappointment with the students, feeling that the trip was a waste of time. He suspected that the school prioritized students with money over those with talent. However, to lift his spirits, he reminded himself that at least one student had met the basic standards and that he was compensated well for his efforts. He asked the principal if he truly expected to find a top-tier genius here. The principal sighed, acknowledging that the path of martial arts was harsh. Talent was crucial. Hard work alone without opportunity simply wasn't sufficient. As they were speaking, a sudden noise echoed through the air. Both froze and quickly turned to where the sound originated. 7 thunderous sounds echoed, followed by a rush of thunderous fists. Their expressions shifted in an instant. Disbelief washed over them as they questioned how the school could have someone of that caliber. The principal was even more astonished, declaring it impossible. He had never encountered anyone like that in his school before. The principal then had a sudden realization. He didn't even recognize the student. The kid hadn't paid any extra fees. As he looked at the student's clothes, his heart skipped a beat. That uniform clearly belonged to a student. The shock hit him hard. If he had enforced the rules more strictly, this student likely wouldn't have been allowed in the lesson at all. Even Chan Tien was taken aback. He muttered that he had only taught for half a day, yet someone had already achieved mastery. The principal's mind went blank as he questioned whether he had heard correctly. 9 sounds? Was it truly 9 sounds? Chan Tien was at a loss for words, standing silently, overwhelmed with emotion to the point of tears. The principal was equally stunned. He never expected someone without wealth to possess such extraordinary talent. Noticing Chan Tien frozen in place, the principal inquired about what was wrong. Chan Tien finally exhaled and acknowledged that he understood. Everything suddenly fell into place. Without a word, he took his stance and unleashed his own thunderous fist. The air erupted, and 8 booming sounds echoed. The principal nearly jumped. 8 sounds? Chan Tien had broken through? Chan Tien gazed at his own fist, excitement evident on his face. He mentioned that witnessing that student's punch had provided the inspiration he had been lacking for years. Without it, he might never have achieved this breakthrough in his lifetime. But then reality struck him. This was not the moment to celebrate. Chan Tien urgently urged the principal to hurry and locate that student. The principal snapped to attention and began running. Unfortunately, by the time they arrived, the student had already left. Su Hong had already accomplished his goal. As he walked away, he reflected on how practicing a crank martial art was far more exhausting than the Drank Vajra fist. His Thunder Rush fist had already attained perfection. Now, the next step was to determine how to earn more martial value points to become a true martial artist as quickly as possible. He couldn't afford to engage in life-and-death battles in the underground arena every time. Earning points through regular sparring would be far more advantageous. Shortly thereafter, he arrived at his workplace, the Raging Thunder Dojo. Inside, students were training as they typically did. When they saw him, someone asked why he had come in today. Su Hong casually replied that he wasn't busy and had just stopped by to practice. Suddenly, a loud thud reverberated through the hall as a student fell to the floor. Standing over him, another guy sneered, asserting that anyone who dared to claim his teacher taught poorly should first acknowledge their own shortcomings in learning rather than making excuses. Su Hong glanced over and inquired about what was happening. His friend explained that since Su Hong hadn't been around lately, he might not be aware. The student's teacher was a new instructor who was quite strong but had a disdain for ordinary people and taught in a rather lackadaisical manner. Additionally, his disciple, a man named Li Yan, was also exceptionally strong. As they spoke, another student was knocked down. Li Yan glanced at him and sneered, asserting that he shouldn't dare to challenge him at such a weak level. Before the situation could deteriorate further, Su Hong stepped in and seized Li Yan's wrist, telling him that it was enough. Li Yan shot him a fierce glare, demanding to know who he was and instructing him to let go. He challenged Su Hong to settle things properly in the arena, one-on-one, if he had the courage. Unfazed, Su Hong calmly accepted the challenge. At that moment, a voice interrupted, inquiring about the noise and announcing that class was about to begin. Li Yan withdrew his hand and sneered, telling Su Hong he was fortunate this time. As she watched him walk away, Su Hong couldn't help but think that he was far too arrogant. Shortly after, the instructor spoke up, announcing that today would be the final day he taught the Raging Sea Spear technique. As always, he would demonstrate it just once. As he assumed his position, it was evident that the instructor doubted anyone could grasp it from a single demonstration. Nevertheless, Su Hong observed with intense concentration. For him, once was sufficient. His eyes tracked every motion as the spear sliced through the air. As the demonstration concluded, the instructor turned to leave, stating that the extent of their learning was up to them. Complaints quickly emerged. Some students labeled the one-time demonstration a scam, while others noted that those in the back row struggled to see clearly. Su Hong, however, had grasped its essence. The spear surged like a dragon plunging into the sea, its force cascading forward like relentless waves. Grabbing a spear, he started to move, flawlessly mimicking what he had just observed. For a moment, everyone fell silent. Then, The noise erupted. People stared in disbelief, shouting that Su Hong had actually mastered it. Others murmured that this was the first time they had witnessed such a prodigy, while some bitterly questioned whether they were simply too slow to grasp it. Attracted by the noise, Li Yan returned and inquired about who had supposedly mastered the technique. He dismissed the notion with a scoff. Then, he spotted Su Hong. As Li Yan observed Su Hong's spear technique flowing effortlessly, his eyes narrowed. It was clear that Su Hong had grasped the skill. A spark of interest ignited within him. Testing someone like this promised to be enjoyable. Stepping forward, Li Yan called out to him, offering to share a few tips on his spear technique. Li Yan seized his spear, twirled it, and aimed the tip at Su Hong, challenging him to come forward. He reiterated that he would teach him a lesson. Su Hong merely nodded in agreement. One of the students quickly tried to intervene, warning that although Li Yan was a bad person, he was also quite strong. Therefore, Su Hong should avoid acting impulsively. Su Hong smiled reassuringly and told him not to worry. He stepped forward with his spear and took his position. Facing Li Yan, he politely expressed that he looked forward to his guidance. That sentence completely triggered Li Yan. He snapped back, accusing Su Hong of arrogance, and asserting that he would demonstrate the raging sea spear technique at a micro level. Su Hong stayed composed. As he maneuvered his spear, he subtly controlled his power, intentionally keeping it in check. At a proficient level, he aimed to conceal his full strength. His goal was simply to show the man in front of him how absurd his behavior was. The instant Su Hong's spear moved, Li Yan froze. The flow and momentum were unmistakable. It was the proficient-level, raging sea spear technique. No matter how much he tried to deny it, the reality before him remained unchanged. Su Hong mastered the proficient level of his raging sea spear technique, with movements that flowed like crashing waves. When he launched the attack, his opponent simply froze. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Su Hong was merely a martial apprentice, not yet a true martial artist. Yet, he had somehow mastered the raging sea spear to a proficient level. That was a challenge even veterans found difficult. Yet, it was unfolding right before him. A notification appeared for Su Hong. He had defeated a higher-level opponent, earning 35 martial value points. It worked. Even regular sparring earned him points. He didn't have to risk death every time. He could grow stronger simply by fighting intelligently. Meanwhile, the opponent was in a state of panic. This is impossible. It felt utterly impossible. After years of training, he accomplished this so quickly? Was all my hard work in vain? He felt utterly crushed. Before the situation escalated, Su Hong retracted his spear. "That's enough," he said calmly. At that moment, the instructor arrived. Noticing the situation, he quickly intervened to reprimand his student. The man attempted to argue, but the instructor struck him sharply across the face. "If you can't handle losing," he shouted, "you aren't a true martial artist." The crowd loved it. That guy was always so arrogant. So witnessing his humbling was a satisfying experience. The instructor turned to Su Hong in astonishment. He had demonstrated the move just once, yet he had already mastered it. Even the geniuses from the capital couldn't achieve that. "Your talent is impressive," the instructor remarked. "My student can be arrogant, but meeting you is beneficial for him." He bowed slightly. "Little brother, I regret that I haven't taught him better manners. Please forgive us." Su Hong was taken aback. He hadn't anticipated such a rapid shift in the man's demeanor. This guy changes his attitude faster than one can turn a page in a book, he thought. As he left the training grounds, he felt a sense of fatigue, but it was a satisfying kind of tired. He had accomplished a lot today. He mastered the Thunder Rush Fist and the Raging Sea Spear, and he also gained a significant amount of martial value. As he walked through his high school campus, he contemplated his next steps. The entrance exam was approaching quickly. Wealthy kids were already purchasing high-grade alloy weapons. To keep up, he needed one as well. He could still feel the spear in his hands. "I'll stick with the spear," he decided. He needed to acquire a real alloy spear quickly, but he was broke. He could barely cover his aunt's medical bills, much less afford a weapon that cost $70,000. Still, he refused to give up. There had to be a way. Suddenly, an announcement echoed throughout the city. Ferocious beasts were attacking the wilderness. The city lord was seeking martial artists to hunt them down, offering substantial rewards. Su Hong knew immediately that this was his opportunity. When he got home, his aunt was busy working, as usual. She advised him not to overexert himself, as he had already contributed financially. However, his uncle insisted on continuing to work, stating he wouldn't depend on Su Hong as long as he was able to move. They welcomed him warmly as he entered. He advised them to rest while he handled everything, explaining that he could earn money at that moment. His uncle chuckled and remarked that, while it sounded nice, he couldn't simply sit around doing nothing. He wanted to continue earning money to meet their daily needs. His aunt smiled as well, mentioning that they needed to save money so Su Hong could concentrate on his training. Hearing that caused a sharp pain in Su Hong's chest. They had lived simply for so long. Unless he earned enough to ensure their future, they would never stop working so hard. That night on the rooftop, he accessed his status panel. The wilderness was perilous, and he needed to become stronger. He invested all his remaining martial value into his vitality stats. Power surged within him. His blood roared and his muscles tightened. The number climbed until it reached 95.2. He felt like a beast poised to strike, now just one small step away from becoming a true martial artist. 2 days later, late at night, he lay on the gym floor completely exhausted. Yet his eyes sparkled with excitement. He had mastered all his skills: Thunder Rush Fist, Raging Sea Spear, Vajra Fist, and Floating Light Palm. He took a deep breath. 2 days of relentless training had paid off. Now, it was time to leave. The following morning, he made his way to the Star City martial artist base. Upon arriving, he paused, filled with awe. He had seen it on TV, but experiencing it in person was a different story. The venue was filled with powerful martial artists. He examined the bounty board. Non-ranked beasts were valued at 300 coins, while Tier 1 early-stage beasts were worth 1,000. Mid-stage beasts were priced at 3,000, and late-stage beasts at 5,000. Su Hong frowned at the rules. They only accepted the left ear as proof for the reward, which felt quite outdated. Nearby, a man placed a bloody sack on the counter. "Miss, could you count these for me?" he asked. The bag was filled with ears. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the door. "Move it!" someone shouted. "Young Master Yi has arrived!" The crowd parted as Su Hong noticed an arrogant-looking man striding in. He looked familiar. Su Hong frowned. That vibe reminded him of someone. People whispered around him. If his uncle weren't the boss, he would be dead by now. "I heard he got beaten up recently." "Serves him right." "Really? No wonder he's been hiding." Su Hong listened and then looked up. Their eyes met for a brief moment. They recognized one another, and the atmosphere grew tense. Su Hong came to a realization. The beasts weren't the only threat in this wilderness. People could be dangerous as well. He reminded himself to remain vigilant. As he left, a stranger remarked on how youthful he appeared. "First time going out alone?" the man inquired. Su Hong simply nodded and continued walking. Behind him, the man shook his head. "Just another kid rushing to his death," he muttered. "Su Hong." I stepped into the wilderness and surveyed my surroundings. The forest was serene and tranquil, yet he remained vigilant. He couldn't return without something to show for his efforts. 2 hours later, he found himself deep in the woods. He took a sip of water, frowning. There were no beasts in sight. Perhaps the outer area had already been hunted out. He chose to accelerate and delve even deeper. In an instant, his expression shifted. A massive figure obstructed his path. It was enormous and intimidating, just like in the books a ferocious beast. Su Hong recognized it instantly. An Azura Moon wolf, a Tier 1 early-stage beast. It stared at him with glowing red eyes, baring its teeth and growling. It was clearly hungry. The wolf crouched, poised to leap. Su Hong took a deep breath and prepared herself. It was time to fight. As the wolf lunged at him with its claws bared, Su Hong reacted in an instant. He dodged the attack and delivered a swift counter. A charged punch landed straight in its gut. The force sent the beast hurtling through the air, its enormous body crashing into a tree with a resounding thud. The wolf collapsed to the ground, immobilized. Su Hong loomed above it, sparks of electricity still crackling around his fists. As he gazed at his trembling hands, he sensed the power coursing through him. Battling real ferocious beasts was far more exhilarating than he had ever envisioned. Defeating a Tier 1 early-stage beast in a single blow exhilarated him. If this was so simple, he pondered how he would fare against a mid-stage beast. Suddenly, he detected movement. A massive figure stepped out of the shadows, a low growl reverberating through the forest. It was a furious black bear, classified as a Tier 1 mid-stage beast. It charged forward, believing it had discovered an easy meal. Just before it could strike, a blur of motion collided with it head-on. A powerful, lightning-charged fist struck the bear, sending it crashing to the ground. Su Hong stood his ground, calm and composed. He had taken down the beast through his own strength. As he exhaled slowly, he recognized just how powerful he had become. Unless he encountered a Tier 2 beast, he felt safe here. That secured another $3,000 in bounty. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. His accumulated martial value was finally sufficient to break through and become a martial artist. Su Hong's heart raced. He was on the verge of a breakthrough. Before he could celebrate, a terrifying roar reverberated through the forest. The pressure was overwhelming, sending chills down his spine. His expression darkened immediately. He turned toward the noise, squinting. Whatever had produced that sound was far more powerful than anything he had encountered before. Curiosity and caution battled in his mind, but curiosity ultimately prevailed. He quietly approached the source of the roar. Upon reaching a towering rock formation, he ascended to gain a better perspective. What he saw left him breathless. A colossal black-scaled serpent coiled among the trees, a Tier 1 late-stage beast, a black jade python. Its massive size and terrifying aura were unmistakable. A group of people was nearby, engaged in a fight, but it was evident they were losing. One by one, they were cast aside, utterly overpowered. Su Hong watched, his heart racing. This was a whole new level. Suddenly, his instincts shouted that danger was near. He jumped aside just in time. The beast's spiked tail crashed down precisely where he had been standing, shattering the ground. The creature was not satisfied. It was furious that its prey had escaped. Su Hong had barely touched down when he had to leap again, narrowly avoiding a sweeping strike. Nonetheless, the attack was so swift that it grazed him, sending a jolt of pain coursing through his body. He recognized just how incredibly fast this thing truly was. Regaining his balance, he spotted an injured fighter nearby who was unable to move. Setting aside his own pain, Su Hong seized the fallen fighter's weapon. Muttering that he would borrow it for a moment, he turned back to the creature. The python reared back, its jaws wide open and poised to strike once more. Su Hong narrowly avoided the blow, rolling away just in time. He scrambled to his feet, his mind racing. A Tier 1 late-stage beast typically required an entire team to defeat. Yet here he was, facing one head-on. His skills had now been perfected. Utilizing his void step, he darted around, evading attacks with astonishing speed. Noticing an opening, he countered by thrusting the spear forward, using the raging sea spear technique. The tip pierced the beast. Scales, unleashing a furious roar. The python thrashed violently, writhing in pain. Su Hong continued on without pause. He struck again, fluid and precise, sending the monster into a frenzy. Nevertheless, he understood the truth. With a body that large, delivering a fatal blow wouldn't be simple. The size difference made it extremely difficult to hit a vital spot. He reminded himself to be patient. He needed to weaken it first and wait for the right moment. At that moment, the beast struck again, its enormous body barreling toward him with immense power. Su Hong delivered a powerful, thunderous punch. The explosive impact collided with the beast, halting it in its tracks. A shockwave surged through the air as both staggered backward. Su Hong understood that he couldn't linger after landing a hit. He needed to retreat quickly and search for another opportunity. A single mistake could mean death against a creature like this. His breathing grew heavier. This fighting style was exhausting, but it was his only safe option. However, the python was also fatigued, its movements beginning to slow. The beast was approaching its limit. Just a bit more, he thought. If I maintain this pace, I can win. He braced himself for the next round, his eyes fixed on the beast. Suddenly, a cold chill ran down his spine. Something felt off. Before he could respond, a violent force struck him from the side. He soared through the air before crashing heavily to the ground. Gasping for breath, he managed to roll over just in time to barely evade a follow-up attack. The impact shook him to his core. He had been ambushed. Struggling to his feet, he shouted, "Who's there?" Several figures emerged from the shadows. One of them laughed mockingly. "How does it feel to be caught off guard? Perhaps you should just hand over the black jade python to us." Su Hong's eyes narrowed as he recognized the speaker, and his heart sank. Real trouble had come. Su Hong found himself in a difficult situation, surrounded by a large group of goons with whom he had a troubled history. The leader ridiculed him, stating that when he saw Su Hong leaving the city alone, he was certain Su Hong would meet his demise out there. He conceded that he hadn't anticipated Su Hong's remarkable luck. Not only had Su Hong survived, but he also managed to loot a severely injured black jade giant python. The leader glanced at the nearby python, which was barely clinging to life, and sensed that this was the perfect opportunity to seize everything. Su Hong recognized that since the man mentioned picking up the python, they must have just arrived. He observed that all five were martial artists. Aware of the odds, he understood he couldn't confront them all directly. Suddenly, one of the thugs lunged at him, fist raised. He shouted that young Master Yi wanted the python and questioned why Su Hong hadn't fled yet. Su Hong, irritated by the disrespect, channeled a significant amount of aura into his hand. He explained that the only reason he had been pushed back earlier was due to a sneak attack, questioning whether they truly believed he couldn't defeat them. Su Hong threw a punch that connected squarely with the enemy's fist, unleashing a shock wave of energy. The goon was momentarily stunned by the impact, coming to understand just how formidable Su Hong's strength truly was. Su Hong didn't stop there. He followed up with a punch directly to the guy's face, sending him flying back toward the rest of the group. The leader instantly recognized the move, the formidable Vajra fist. He understood that this was indeed the individual known as Minotaur. The leader was truly impressed by the show of strength. However, Su Hong also recognized the leader. It was White Fox. White Fox asserted that Su Hong humiliated him in front of a crowd, an experience he had never encountered before. Furious at the memory, White Fox resolved not to let this go unpunished. He commanded his men to take down Su Hong immediately. The group charged ahead with their weapons drawn. Su Hong swiftly seized his spear and sprinted into the wilderness to put some distance between himself and the others. White Fox would not allow him to escape and ordered everyone to pursue him, leading the charge as they sprinted after Su Hong. They searched the wilderness, examining every potential hiding spot. One goon grumbled about their inability to locate him, while another cautioned that the thick woods ahead were ideal for an ambush, urging everyone to remain vigilant. One of them stayed cocky, insisting that with so many people on their side, there was no reason to fear just one person. In an instant, a figure darted behind him at blinding speed. The goon spun around, and there stood Su Hong. Su Hong delivered a powerful punch, sending the man soaring through the air until he landed directly in front of his leader. That guy was definitely out cold. The leader was taken aback, questioning how Su Hong could move so quickly. White Fox could hardly believe his eyes. After witnessing the brutal attack, the rest of the group quickly formed a defensive circle, fearful of being the next target. One goon recognized the move as the Nine Echoes Thunder Rush Fist, pointing out that even Tier 3 martial artists found it challenging to master. Frustrated, White Fox yelled at them to be quiet. Internally, he was panicking, convinced that mastering both the Vajra Fist and Thunder Rush Fist was impossible. True fear began to take hold of him. His fear would have intensified if he had known that Su Hong was currently hiding in a tree above, observing their every move. To Su Hong, they resembled rats being hunted by a cat. He reflected that if he hadn't expended so much energy battling the python earlier, he could have easily taken them on directly. He threw his spear to create a distraction, intending to pick them off one by one. The spear struck the ground nearby, startling the entire group. As they were distracted by the spear, Su Hong crouched down, seized one of the goons, and launched an attack. After the sudden strike, he disappeared back into the shadows. The remaining goons were utterly terrified. They believed that even sticking together wouldn't protect them from someone this formidable. They pleaded with young Master Yi to retreat, insisting that the kid was too powerful, but the leader refused to heed their warnings. White Fox's ego prevented him from fleeing. He felt the need to demonstrate his strength despite his underlying fear. He proclaimed that he had to kill Su Hong today. Meanwhile, Su Hong moved with such incredible speed that they could hardly keep up with him. Suddenly, while White Fox was still speaking, Su Hong rushed past. Before the leader could respond, another goon was seized and slammed to the ground. As before, Su Hong vanished right after the attack. White Fox's panic shifted to frustration. He couldn't comprehend how this kid had become so much stronger in just a few days. It felt unreal. Suddenly, a blur rushed right behind him. White Fox spun around but found nothing. He cursed, unwilling to accept that Su Hong could catch him by surprise. However, the moment he turned back around, Su Hong stood directly in front of him, poised to attack Vok. White Fox immediately spun around, shouting that he hadn't been defeated yet. He concentrated magical energy in his hand and struck, proclaiming that this was the void-breaking finger. Su Hong evaded the attack with a fluid motion. The tree behind him absorbed the blow instead. The power of White Fox's attack was tremendous, completely shattering the trunk. White Fox pressed on relentlessly. Noticing Su Hong evade his strikes, he unleashed beam after beam, repeatedly calling out the name of his attack. No matter how many times he fired, Su Hong dodged every shot with remarkable speed. As he evaded the attacks, he assessed their power, concluding that the skill must be at least B ranks. Intrigued, he considered the possibility of learning it himself in the future. White Fox, however, was losing his sanity. His finger radiated a blue aura as he shouted that Su Hong had made a permanent enemy. He threatened that once he returned, he would annihilate Su Hong's entire family. The instant Su Hong heard the threat to his family, something inside him broke. Threatening his family was utterly unacceptable. Fueled by rage, he ceased dodging and charged directly at White Fox. White Fox attempted to intimidate him by boasting about his background, noting that his uncle was a supervisor at the martial artist base and his father a VIP. Before he could complete his sentence, Su Hong stood directly in front of him, exuding an intimidating presence. Su Hong remained silent initially, allowing his power to convey his intent. As he prepared to deliver a powerful punch, he finally spoke, telling White Fox that he looked better when he was acting arrogantly. He remarked that this begging didn't suit him, but he was looking forward to finishing this. Su Hong landed a solid punch on White Fox's face, sending him flying backward. The force of the blow was immense. White Fox was propelled deep into the forest, crashing through trees before hitting the ground with a thud. Dust and smoke filled the air following the impact. As the dust settled, Su Hong approached with a furious expression, a red aura enveloping his body. He warned White Fox that he should never have used his family as a threat. Lying on the ground, broken and bleeding, White Fox questioned in disbelief how Su Hong could be so strong. He insisted that it was impossible, as Su Hong wasn't even supposed to be a martial artist yet. Suddenly, the giant python behind him heard the noise and fixed its gaze on White Fox. White Fox felt a shiver run down his spine. He glanced back just as the python swung its massive tail and lunged with its jaws wide open. With White Fox eliminated, the python focused entirely on Su Hong. He realized that battling the goons had consumed too much time, allowing the giant python to regain its stamina. Now, he faced the beast once more, but this time he was the one running low on energy. The group of martial artists seethed after their humiliating defeat. One of them cursed, labeling the kid who had beaten them as far too strange. Another scanned the area, inquiring about young Master Yi, hoping he had already dealt with the kid. At that moment, they noticed the same young man who had previously defeated them, and he was charging straight toward them once more. Believing he had returned for another confrontation, they quickly prepared for a fight. "The brat finally shows his face," one of them shouted, while another vowed not to let him escape this time. However, Su Hong had no intention of engaging in battle. He continued running, calmly urging them to get out of his way. Moments later, they understood exactly why he was running. A massive, enraged python was right on his heels. The sight left them all speechless with fear. The python lunged at Su Hong, but with his spear in hand, he skillfully leaped aside, evading the deadly strike. Unfortunately, one of the other martial artists was not as quick. The python snatched him up instead. A system notification appeared for Su Hong. Opponent martial artist indirectly taken down. Reward: 30 pleasant points, martial value. The python struck again, capturing another man who couldn't escape. A second notification appeared with the same message, awarding Su Hong an additional 30 martial value. Su Hong was surprised to discover that he could earn points even when he wasn't the one delivering the final blow. The python quickly redirected its focus to Su Hong, striking out with its powerful tail. He leaped over the attack, skillfully evading the creature's clever, full-body strikes. As he ran and dodged, Su Hong realized that with all the points he had accumulated, he finally had enough martial value to break through and become a true martial artist. Weaving through the trees, Su Hong deftly outmaneuvered the increasingly frustrated python. As he ran, he scanned the surroundings, realizing he just needed to find a safe spot to make his breakthrough. At that moment, he noticed something ahead a small cave. It was the ideal shelter he had been searching for, a place where he could be safe from the python and concentrate on his progress. Perfect, he thought, and quickly dashed toward the cave's entrance. The python, still in hot pursuit, lunged one final time. However, Su Hong dove into the safety of the cave just in the nick of time. The python attempted to follow him inside, but its massive body was too large for the opening, causing it to get stuck at the entrance. Trapped and furious, the python could only roar in frustration. Meanwhile, Su Hong calmly focused on his system. He opened his status window, which displayed his vitality at 96, spirit at 23, and physique as mortal body at 3%. All his skills: Raging Sea Spear Technique, Thunder Rush Fist, Vira Fist, Floating Light Palm, and Void Step were at peak levels. Most importantly, his martial value stood at a robust 504. Without wasting a moment, he started allocating all his points to his stats, mentally urging the system to speed up. His goal was to acquire as much power as possible in the shortest time. He concentrated on his vitality, and as the points accumulated, he felt a searing heat coursing through his body, as if magma were flowing through his veins. In just moments, his vitality reached 100. Outside the cave, even the trapped python appeared to sense a chilling shift in the atmosphere. A new notification popped up. Breakthrough successful. Tier 1 Martial Artist. Su Hong felt a surge of power and thought to himself, "I finally become a true martial artist." He clenched his fist, feeling a powerful aura surround him. Glancing at the struggling python, he declared, "Now it's my turn." For the first time, the python experienced genuine fear. It frantically attempted to pull its body out of the cave entrance, driven solely by the desire to escape. However, Su Hong did not give it that opportunity. He focused his newfound strength into an incredibly powerful punch. Still trapped in the entrance, the python had no way to evade the attack. The punch landed with tremendous force, sending the massive beast flying backward with a pained roar. The sheer force of the blow was astonishing. a striking contrast to the boy it had just pursued. However, Su Hong was not finished yet. Before the python could even recover, it was already on the move. He jumped into the air, landing on the beast's enormous body. With a mighty roar, he unleashed a barrage of Vajra fist attacks. Each punch struck with devastating force, driving the giant snake into the ground. The ground cracked and shattered with each repeated impact. The python thrashed wildly but was utterly overwhelmed by the relentless assault. At last, with one final earth-shattering blow, the python lay still. Dust and smoke filled the air from the sheer intensity of the battle. When it finally cleared, Su Hong stood triumphantly atop the now defeated giant python. He received a notification for a plus 92 martial value. Su Hong realized that although the python was already injured, his newfound strength enabled him to confront it directly, something that would have been impossible just moments earlier. His thoughts shifted to the reward. Typically, one needed to cut off a beast's left ear as proof of the kill, but snakes lacked ears. He was briefly at a loss for what to do. He chose to set his worries aside for now and began his journey back. The forest was eerily silent, with the only remnants of the chaotic chase being the trail of destruction left behind. As he walked, he stumbled upon the bodies of the men who had attempted to ambush him. Noticing their condition, likely the result of a python attack, Su Hong remarked that they had gotten off easy. His thoughts then shifted to the advanced martial technique employed by their leader. His search was fruitful. He discovered a manual on Yi Feng's body. Void-breaking finger, he read, a look of interest crossing his face. This is getting interesting. Rather than leaving right away, he chose to remain near the cave. He built a fire and settled beside the enormous python carcass to examine his newfound prize. He started studying the manual and, with his enhanced abilities, quickly memorized the entire introductory technique for the void-breaking finger. All that remained was to utilize his system to master it in record time. As he started his training in the system, a clone of himself appeared before him, prepared for a fight. The clone wasted no time, relentlessly assaulting him with the void-breaking finger again and again. Sparring with the clone significantly boosted Su Hong's mastery of the technique, quickly increasing it to 51%, then 63%, 77%, and finally reaching 93%. Before long, a notification confirmed that his void-breaking finger had attained the basic realm, marking the start of his progress toward the next level. The training left Su Hong utterly exhausted. He coughed, realizing that even achieving the basic realm with a B-rank skill placed tremendous strain on his body. The system then urged him to find a real monster to test his newfound power. 3 days later, Su Hong faced a new challenge, a massive, roaring, bear-like monster. He tested his new skill by using the void-breaking finger to confront the beast directly, and ultimately, he emerged victorious. After the intense battle, Su Hong felt he had truly mastered the skill. This power is definitely worthy of a B-rank's martial skill, he said with satisfaction. A system notification confirmed that the void-breaking finger had reached perfection. With his newfound power secured, Su Hong decided it was time to return. At the martial artist base, a large crowd had gathered around the mission counter, buzzing with excitement. Someone in the crowd gasped in disbelief. To 30,000! Another person noted that the Thunder Squad must be exceptionally skilled to have slain so many fierce beasts. A third remarked that a haul like that represented several months of hard work for most people. Another person highlighted the quality of the kills, mentioning that they were all Tier 1 beasts, with not a single unranked one among them, and even included a few high-stage monsters. As the crowd admired the Thunder Squad's score, the receptionist glanced at Su Hong's collection of trophies. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she announced his results. 72 Tier 1 initial stage beasts, 83 middle stage, and 17 high stage, totaling a reward of 406,000 Blue Star coins. Noticing the reaction, Su Hong began to regret his decision. He wondered if he had gone too far. A haul this large was far too conspicuous, and he could only hope it wouldn't attract any unwanted trouble. The crowd erupted in disbelief at the staggering number they were hearing. As Su Hong navigated through the astonished crowd, a sudden uproar erupted at the base entrance. Shouts filled the air as people questioned how the base could be under attack, despite the presence of so many high-level martial artists. The commotion arose not from an attack, but from the sudden entrance of a significant figure. The crowd parted to reveal a man striding forward, accompanied by a group of guards. Yi Qi, the man in charge of the base and Yi Feng's uncle, wore a grim expression as he ordered his men to seal off the entire facility. "Not a single fly escapes," he commanded. His guards promptly set to work executing the order. Another supervisor rushed over, inquiring about what was happening with Yi Qi. Yi Qi's voice was icy as he replied, "My nephew, Yi Feng, and the 4 martial artists with him are all dead." A stunned silence enveloped the crowd as whispers of disbelief spread about the complete annihilation of young Master Yi Feng and his entire group. Not everyone felt sorrowful, though. One person remarked that it was a good kill, considering Yi Feng had robbed nearly everyone at the base. Another chimed in, saying that if it weren't for his influential uncle, someone would have taken care of him long ago. Disregarding the whispers, Yi Qi revealed the true reason for the lockdown. A valuable B-rank martial skill had gone missing from Yi Feng's possession. He ordered a search of every martial artist in the base, declaring that no one would be allowed to leave until they were cleared of suspicion. Upon hearing this, Su Hong felt a brief sense of relief. He believed that the condition of the bodies clearly indicated the giant python as the culprit, meaning the deaths shouldn't be linked to him. As the search continued, he began to feel uneasy. He noticed people glancing his way and whispering to one another, leading him to suspect that the search might be aimed at him specifically. His fears were realized when Yi Qi, accompanied by his guards, approached him directly. On the surface, Yi Qi's tone was courteous. "I heard you single-handedly killed over 400,000 ferocious beasts," he remarked, commending Su Hong's abilities. However, his calm words were undermined by the menacing red aura surrounding him, revealing his displeasure. It appeared he already had his suspicions. Su Hong maintained a calm expression, but inside he was aware of the truth. He was much stronger now. Deep down, he even began to question whether he could truly defeat this man, if the situation took a turn for the worse. The White Fox's father was the first to speak. He mentioned that he had heard Su Hong single-handedly defeated ferocious beasts, valued at 400,000 credits, acknowledging that it was quite impressive for a student. However, the woman beside him was not convinced. She claimed that Su Hong appeared to be no more than a rank 1 early-stage fighter, making it impossible for him to have killed so many beasts. Accusing him of stealing from young Master Yi's pack, she promptly ordered her men to search him. No sooner had the order left her lips than 2 large men, flames flickering in their hands, approached Su Hong. One of them issued a stern warning, "Do not resist or things would turn ugly." In the blink of an eye, the situation changed dramatically. One of the men suddenly found a spear tip aimed directly at his face. The guard froze and asked Su Hong what he thought he was doing. Su Hong calmly replied that it was nothing, maintaining a steady grip on the spear. The man was utterly shocked. He hadn't even seen Su Hong draw the weapon. It had happened too quickly. Su Hong then declared that he was a student at Star City High No. 1. He glanced at them and asked if they truly wanted to conduct a search on a student from that school. Upon hearing the school's name, the White Fox's father hesitated. He was aware that the principal of High School No. 1 was renowned for being fiercely protective of his students, and he did not want to offend someone over a minor issue. Yi Qi still found the entire situation suspicious. If this kid truly hunted all those beasts, he was a genius. However, if they were mistaken and ended up offending a talented student, it wouldn't be worth the trouble. He signaled his men to halt and stepped forward himself. He explained that his nephew had been attacked and a secret family technique had been stolen, leaving him no choice but to find the culprit. He added that he hoped Su Hong would cooperate. Su Hong simply responded that he just hoped they weren't accusing the wrong person. Yi Qi then offered 10,000 credits as compensation for the inconvenience of searching for him and inquired if that seemed fair. Su Hong quickly countered, demanding 30,000. He was aware that Ye Feng had technically been killed by the giant python. As long as the stolen technique wasn't found on him, they couldn't prove anything. Ye Qi agreed to the price. Su Hong opened his arms, allowing them to search him. While the men checked his pockets, the woman rummaged through his bag. Su Hong urged them to search thoroughly, as he wanted to avoid any false rumors about him later. Once they finished, the men reported that they had found absolutely nothing. Ye Qi nodded, instructed them to pay Su Hong the 30,000 credits, and allowed him to leave. As Su Hong walked away, he reflected on how fortunate he was to have cleaned up the scene thoroughly. Had he not done so, he would have found himself in serious trouble today. Ye Qi turned to the crowd and shouted for the search to continue, insisting that no one leave until the thief was caught. Meanwhile, Su Hong was strategizing his next steps. He planned to shower and change before heading directly to the Martial Artist Association to sign up for the assessment. He needed to receive proper guidance on techniques as soon as possible. A little later, Su Hong was resting at the underground hotel in the martial artist base. He opened his system interface and checked his points, surprised to find he had 534 martial points. He had been so focused on training the world-shattering finger and hunting beasts that he forgot to spend them. His stats were impressive. Vitality was over 103, spirit stood at 23, and his physique, the mortal frame, was at 6%. All his skills, void-shattering finger, raging sea spear technique, and void step, were perfected. Su Hong observed that rank 1 early stage required 100 vitality, while mid-stage demanded 200. After calculating, he realized that even if he allocated all his points to vitality, he would still fall short by approximately 40 points for mid-stage. Consequently, he decided to explore the options for upgrading spirit and mortal frame instead. His spirit was at 23, and his mortal frame was at 6%. With points to spare, he decided to experiment. He upgraded his spirit, observing it increase by 0.1 each time. After spending some points, he realized he didn't feel any different. Next, he attempted to increase his mortal frame by 0.1 increments. This time, the results were immediate. He felt a noticeable boost in physical strength right away, prompting him to continue adding points in that area. Noticing his martial points dwindling rapidly, he chose to pause the upgrades to the mortal frame. Instead, he redirected his focus and invested 200 martial points into his vitality. After the changes, his mortal frame was at 36.1%. He chose to allocate the remaining points to his spirit. As soon as he finished, a tremendous surge of red energy erupted around him. He sensed an overwhelming power surging from deep within his body. After a few moments, the energy dissipated, and his body gradually returned to its normal state. He exhaled deeply, relieved to be back to his normal size. He realized it would have been quite awkward to explain to others why he had suddenly transformed into a giant muscle man. An hour later, Su Hong arrived at the Star City Martial Artist Association, a large building nestled among towering skyscrapers. He approached the front desk and informed the receptionist that he was there for the assessment. The woman nodded and assured him that a staff member would escort him to the testing area shortly. As he walked down the hall behind a staff member, she remarked on how young he appeared and inquired if it was his first time. She explained the rules. To qualify as a rank 1 martial artist, he needed at least 100 vitality and a combat power exceeding 1,000. Wishing him luck, she received a polite thank you from Su Hong. In the waiting area, people began to whisper. One man noted that the boy had come alone, without a master or teacher. Another speculated that, given his young age, he was likely just there to observe the test rather than to pass it. Suddenly, the room erupted with noise as a commotion erupted near the testing machines. The machine announced that a man named Pangaea had 102 vitality, but his combat power was only 992, indicating that he had failed. Frustrated, Pangaea cursed loudly, upset that he had missed the mark by such a narrow margin. Su Hong and the staff member entered the testing zone just as another announcement was made. Li Ming had achieved a vitality score of 105 and had passed. The system instructed him to proceed to the combat power test. Li Ming approached the punching machine, wound up, and delivered a powerful punch. The screen displayed the number 1763. He passed effortlessly. Someone in the crowd gasped, pointing out that 1763 was nearly the power level of a rank 1 mid-stage fighter. Another person inquired if this was Jiang Ming's disciple from the Raging Thunder Dojo. A bystander confirmed it, noting that it made sense for him to be a genius, given his use of the renowned Thunderclap fist. Su Hong heard the name and scratched his head. He thought Jiang Ming's disciple was named Li Yan, and wondered just how many students that guy actually had. Li Ming returned from the machine and informed Su Hong that it was his turn next. As Su Hong stepped forward, Li Ming observed him closely. He thought that since Su Hong was taking the test at such a young age, he must be a genius as well. While he acknowledged that Su Hong was exceptional, he doubted the boy could match his own abilities. Suddenly, the crowd erupted in shock. People yelled, questioning whether the machine was malfunctioning as they struggled to believe the number displayed before them. Even the arrogant Li Ming turned in surprise when the staff member announced that Su Hong's vitality was 123. He had easily passed the first round. Li Ming muttered to himself that it had to be impossible. He tried to calm down, reminding himself that vitality wasn't the only factor that mattered. Combat power was the true measure. He reassured himself that he could still be the top student here. The officers signaled for the combat power test to begin, and Su Hong was directed to the punching machine. Standing in front of the target, Su Hong reflected on his stats. As a martial artist who had enhanced his physique, his raw strength was significantly greater than it had been before. He considered using only 40% of his power, believing that would be sufficient to pass. However, he then worried that if he held back too much and failed to meet the 1,000-point requirement, he would look foolish. To be cautious, he opted to use 50%. He delivered the punch with astonishing speed and power. Even at half strength, the power was overwhelming. The punching machine was propelled off its mount, crashed into the wall, and shattered into pieces. The destruction was complete, and the room fell silent. Everyone stared, mouths agape. Li Ming looked terrified, realizing that Su Hong had shattered the tester with a single blow. The silence erupted into loud shouting as Li Ming grasped the most frightening part. Su Hong hadn't even employed a martial arts technique. It was pure, raw power. Someone in the crowd noted that a rank 1 high-stage fighter typically had around 3,000 combat power. This figure was completely off the charts. Another person seized a teacher's arm and shouted that it was that kid again, labeling him an absolute monster. The teacher nodded, indicating that it all made sense now. Meanwhile, in a high-rise office, a woman sat at her desk. Wu Lingxian, the president of the Star City Martial Arts Association, was venting about the neighboring Yang City branch, expressing her frustration over their constant bragging about a new genius. She feared that if Star City didn't discover some talent soon, she might actually lose her job. Suddenly, a man burst into her office, shouting that a monster had appeared in the assessment hall. Wu Lingxian glared at him, clearly startled by the commotion. The man quickly explained that a rank 1, early-stage kid had sent the testing machine flying with sheer physical strength, achieving a combat power of 3,000. Wu Lingxian paused, struggling to believe it. Then she realized this could be the very miracle she had been waiting for. The central hall of the Martial Artists Association buzzed with activity. People were bustling about, some engaged in conversation, others standing guard, and many assisting injured fighters as they walked. Meanwhile, a number of onlookers simply took in the scene with wide-eyed wonder. Two men were chatting nearby. One of them told Su Hong that he would take him to the second floor to register his martial artist identity first. After that, they could go collect his allowance. Su Hong politely thanked him for his assistance. Suddenly, someone interrupted, announcing that Su Hong had completed the basics and that she would take over personally. The guide was taken aback, realizing it was the president herself. He couldn't believe she had come down to handle this in person. To her, this issue was critical, and she wanted to avoid any mistakes. She looked at the young man and confirmed that he must be Su Hong. She introduced herself as Wu Lingxian, the president of the Star City branch of the Martial Dao Association, and instructed him to follow her. Su Hong agreed, referring to her as president. Internally, he was taken aback. He remembered hearing rumors that the president was a formidable Tier 8 rank Vine martial artist, yet she appeared quite different from what he had envisioned. A few moments later, in the president's private office, the two of them sat down for a serious conversation. Wu Lingxian remarked that Su Hong was a student at Star City No. 1 High School. She recalled that the principal, Li Changzhan, had expressed his frustration to her earlier. He was disappointed that the school had produced only 2 ordinary Tier I martial artists this year, overlooking a hidden talent like Su Hong. Su Hong felt a bit anxious. He inquired why she had brought him to her office, noting that he had only intended to register, collect his allowance, and receive a basic guidance technique. Wu Lingxian waved her hand, signaling him to relax. She explained that her subordinates were already handling his ID and money. As for the guidance technique, she planned to teach him personally. She stood up and asked him directly how much he truly understood about guidance techniques. Su Hong paused for a moment before reciting the textbook definition. The heaven and earth spiritual key possesses attributes, and a guidance technique is a method for absorbing that energy to enhance the body. He noted that different attributes necessitate specific techniques for absorption. The president extended her hand, summoning a small flame. She clarified that while the textbook wasn't incorrect, guidance techniques encompassed more than just basic cultivation methods. She disclosed that her heavenly flame guidance technique absorbed fire attribute energy. This not only enhanced her physical strength, but also infused her attacks with lethal firepower. She mentioned that mastering external attacks could extend one's range. However, she pointed out that for a Tier 1 martial artist, merely carrying a trace of the element was already impressive. Wrapping an entire fist in it was nearly impossible for beginners. Su Hong was taken aback to learn that these techniques could be used for attacking. He had assumed they were solely for absorbing energy to level up, as the textbooks had never referenced any combat applications. The president continued her lesson, explaining that the spiritual key comprised 7 attributes: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, thunder, and wind. While each attribute had its advantages and disadvantages in terms of sheer destructive power, thunder ranked first, followed by metal in second, and fire in third. However, you couldn't choose just any element. It depended on your natural compatibility. Su Hong nodded, now understanding that a martial artist's abilities were limited by their body's affinity. The president agreed and took out a crystal ball to assess their compatibility. She explained that the brighter it glowed, the stronger the affinity. Typically, ordinary martial artists had an affinity of only 20 to 30%. She noted that her own affinity was around 80%, which was regarded as elite. However, she believed that a genius like Su Hong would certainly surpass 90%. As the flame faded, Su Hong picked up the crystal ball. He reflected on how President Wu had achieved Tier 5 mastery at such a young age. She was truly a genius. If she was only operating at 80%, reaching 90% himself would be nothing short of remarkable. Suddenly, the crystal ball started to glow, becoming brighter and brighter until it was blinding. The president gasped, exclaiming that it was full. She had not anticipated this at all. She announced that Su Hong's fire attribute compatibility was a perfect 100%. Staring at him intently, she asked if he understood what that meant. She stepped closer, brimming with praise. Su Hong admitted he didn't understand the significance. The president clarified that this meant he could absorb 100% of the fire attribute energy without wasting a single drop. She explained that with her 80% compatibility, she lost 20% of the energy during absorption. Despite this loss, she had still become a Tier 5 martial artist and the president of the association. Pointed directly at his face, she declared that his future would undoubtedly surpass hers. Su Hong felt a wave of nervous sweat. The president marveled at how she had never anticipated that a small place like Star City could produce a talent comparable to the elites of the imperial capital. As Su Hong listened, He appreciated the fire attribute, but he actually favored thunder. He wished he had high compatibility with thunder, as that would be ideal. Suddenly, the crystal ball illuminated once more, crackling with intense, thunderous energy. The new development shocked the president even further. Su Hong examined the ball and realized that his compatibility with the thunder attribute also appeared to be 100%. The president was utterly speechless, standing there in shock, questioning whether she was hallucinating. With both thunder and fire attributes at 100%, she could only conclude that this boy was an absolute monster. The glow shifted once more. Su Hong noted that his wind attribute compatibility appeared to be 100%. The president stared in disbelief, questioning how something so outrageous could even be possible. A few minutes later, she sank back onto the couch, utterly defeated, as Su Hong quietly observed her descent into shock and panic. She murmured that this wasn't right. Every single element was at full capacity, all at 100%. She convinced herself that she must be dreaming. She reflected on a time when she considered herself a top-tier genius. After all, a 30-year-old Tier 5 martial artist was exceptionally rare. However, after meeting someone who defied all logic, she came to the realization that she was just an ordinary person in comparison. She understood that only another monster could truly comprehend or challenge a creature like him. She murmured to herself about realities that ordinary people simply could not grasp. Su Hong broke the silence, observing that all 7 attributes were at 100%. He expressed his frustration, feeling that focusing solely on thunder while neglecting the other 6 attributes was a significant waste. This situation was genuinely distressing for him. He then boldly asked the president if she could provide him with the guidance techniques for all 7 attributes. The president fell silent before explaining that human energy is limited. Regardless of one's talent level, it's best to concentrate on 1 or 2 areas. She cautioned him about someone in the past who attempted to develop all 7 skills simultaneously and, after decades, remained stuck as a Tier 1 martial artist. Su Hong insisted he couldn't make a decision at that moment. He wanted to try cultivating all of them first and choose a focus later. The president reluctantly agreed but warned him sternly that he must not squander his God-given talent. She then changed the subject, inquiring if his school's monthly exam was approaching. Su Hong nodded in agreement and asked why she was interested. The president noted that tensions in the all-heavens battlefield were escalating. The great war between the 10,000 races and humanity could ignite at any moment. As a result, nations were funneling resources into a specialized genius training camp. She wanted to recommend Su Hong for the position, but there was a condition. He had to achieve first place in his school's monthly exam. If he succeeded, she would secure his spot. Su Hong reflected on the War of the 10,000 Races, recalling the conflict that had taken place over a decade earlier. He remembered losing all his relatives except for his uncle and aunt during his childhood. He assured the president that he understood and would put in the effort. Deep down, he vowed never to let such a tragedy occur again. He needed to become strong enough to protect his family. That night at home, Su Hong excitedly told his uncle and aunt that he had officially become a martial artist. He proudly showcased his new credentials. His uncle and aunt began to cry tears of joy, exclaiming that little Hong had truly succeeded. His aunt added that he had really made something of himself, and she was incredibly proud of his achievements. Su Hong shared that a Tier 1 martial artist received a monthly allowance of $10,000. Which meant his uncle no longer had to work so hard. His uncle smiled and remarked that little Hong had become the family's pillar, promising to heed his words from that point on. Su Hong silently vowed that from this moment forward, he would bear the weight of his entire family on his shoulders. Later that night, Su Hong sat alone in his room, deeply immersed in meditation. When he opened his eyes, they glowed with a deep red light. He clenched his fist, and smoke gradually wafted from his fingers. He wondered if this was the fundamental level of the guidance technique. It felt weak, and he questioned why it seemed to lack any power. He then noticed a new entry on his system panel. The guidance technique had appeared, confirming that he had successfully learned it. Upon checking the status details, he noticed it was currently at level 1. He began to wonder, could guidance techniques be enhanced like skills? President Wu had never brought this up. If these techniques had levels, she would surely have mentioned it. A sudden realization struck him. What if he was the only one capable of leveling them up? What if he could solo level his cultivation technique? If you're eager to see just how powerful he becomes, hit that subscribe button now and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next episode. Su Hong gazed intently at the glowing blue panel, contemplating how to enhance his guidance techniques and whether they improved in the same manner as martial value. As he touched the window, a red warning flashed, insufficient martial value. Su Hong sighed and decided to focus on cultivating the other guidance techniques first, planning to find a way to earn more martial value later. He sat cross-legged on the rooftop, surrounded by books, as flames of spiritual energy erupted around him, illuminating the space. Hours later, Su Hong's inner vision revealed 7 glowing points of spiritual qi. Each point symbolized a distinct technique, such as thunder, water marsh, thick earth, and spirit wind. The 7 attributes clashed against one another. Su Hong gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. He now understood why President Wu claimed that a genius practicing 7 techniques could remain a Tier 1 for decades. He focused on channeling his power, striving to control the energy as flames surged around him. He realized that although all 7 types of qi resided within him, he could only harness one at a time. A spear of fiery qi materialized in his hand as he breathed heavily. The flames danced in his hand. He understood that if he attempted to harness a second attribute, the forces would clash, resulting in a violent explosion. A tremendous explosion of energy rattled the rooftop, causing both attributes to vanish. Su Hong narrowed his eyes. Could thunder and fire truly not be combined? Their natures seemed similar, so why did they repel each other? He tried again. Thunder and sparks of fire coiled around his fingers. When the forces collided, another explosion erupted, scattering the energy. Sweating, Su Hong gritted his teeth and refused to give up. He shouted for one more attempt. Throughout the night, flashes erupted from the rooftop as he worked to fuse the attributes. At dawn, the building still faintly glowed from the sparks of Su Hong's relentless training. Breathing heavily and with sweat dripping down his face, he reminded himself that he just needed a little more. Lightning and flame flickered in his hand as he stared at it, convinced he just needed a little more. Gritting his teeth, he shouted for the power to fuse. Lightning and fire coiled around his arms as he compelled the energies to merge. A bright flame erupted in his palm. After a night of effort, he finally succeeded. He gazed at the flame with relief. Straightening his clothes, he resolved it was time to venture out and test the power. At Star City's Citizen Martial Arts Square, a spacious plaza featuring a clock tower, training robots stood at the ready. Su Hong stood in front of a spider-shaped combat tester. He observed that he had upgraded to a Tier 3 model, hoping this one would hold up better. Recalling that 50% power had previously reached 3,000s, he decided to start with 30% power instead. He struck with his glowing fist, and the result exceeded 2,300. Surprised, he noted that at 30% strength, it should have been around 1,800, yet it had risen by 500. He gazed at the lightning in his hand. The power of thunder was already formidable on its own. He clenched his hand to take aim, pondering the strength of the fused thunder and fire before releasing their combined force. His punch struck the tester with incredible speed and force. The screen flashed 30-4-1, and Su Hong stared in disbelief. It was much higher than he had anticipated. He muttered in shock, questioning how it had surpassed 3,000s. Rubbing his hands next to the damaged tester, he recognized that 30% of his fused power already exceeded that of a Tier 1 high-stage martial artist. He glanced at his status and sighed. His vitality was only 123, making the outcome even more alarming. If the power was this formidable with just 2 attributes, how much stronger would he be by fusing all 7? The thought filled him with excitement. As he watched the flames and lightning crackle in his hand, he smiled, contemplating the idea of fusing 3 attributes in his next attempt. Later, he lay flat on the rooftop, feeling exhausted. Shirtless and sweating, he breathed heavily as small lights floated around him. Combining 2 attributes was challenging, but merging 3 felt even more difficult. He had rearranged all 7 patterns countless times, yet made no progress. He envisioned the power he would gain if he succeeded. Checking the system, he wondered if leveling up his techniques would be beneficial. The screen displayed his level 1 techniques: thunder, flame, and water. He recalled that the monthly exam was tomorrow, and he needed to earn martial value. The following day, students assembled at Star City No. 1 High School as the principal took the stage. The principal announced that this exam would be different. Due to pressure from the front lines, a special training camp would now be held annually to select talented individuals. He explained that the camp offered resources such as advanced arts, rare pills, and grandmaster instructors. The top 3 students from the exam would be admitted to the Star City training camp. The students erupted with excitement, shouting about the genius training camp. Others were taken aback at the possibility of a Tier 7 Grandmaster teaching, especially since their principal was only Tier 3. Su-hong stared ahead wearily. President Wu had promised him a spot if he secured first place, but didn't the top 3 all receive spots regardless? A friend informed Su-hong that Chen Shan and Li Tu had become Tier 1 martial artists, and others had mastered Thunder Rush Fist. Su-hong felt confused. He had only been away for 10 days, yet they had already made such significant progress. He explained that the principal had requested instructor Chen Tian to provide private lessons. Now, Chen Shan and Li Tu's vitality had surpassed 100, allowing their Thunder Rush Fist to resonate 3 times. Suddenly, Chen Shan and Li Tu stepped forward. One declared he wanted everyone to recognize who the true genius was, while the other responded that he hoped the first would remain confident after being defeated. As Principal Li exited the stage, Instructor Chen Tian inquired whether he had identified the genius behind a 9 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist. Principal Li replied that he had searched extensively but did not believe the individual was from his school. As they were talking, they heard a noise behind them and turned around. A man in a black suit approached, accompanied by 2 others. It was Zhang Ming, Su-hong's spear instructor, along with Li Ming and Li Yan. Zhang Ming playfully asked Principal Li why he appeared so somber. The principal inquired about Zhang Ming's presence. With a smile, Zhang Ming remarked that the students appeared weak. He had brought 2 disciples and proposed that the top students spar with them after the exam. Principal Li's expression grew tense. Zhang Ming had come to humiliate him. Refusing would imply that his school lacked talent. Zhang Ming remarked that the students appeared weak, so he would understand if they refused. Instructor Chen Tian retorted, questioning whether Zhang Ming was trying to provoke trouble. Nearby, Li Yan, one of Zhang Ming's students, pointed at the crowd and informed his teacher that there was bad news. Su-hong had arrived. Zhang Ming, puzzled, asked which Su he meant. As he turned to face the students, he spotted Su-hong standing at the back. Zhang Ming exclaimed in surprise, recognizing the same little monster. Su-hong regarded them calmly, a faint smile on her lips. Zhang Ming stared in shock, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. He suddenly realized that the kid they had been discussing was actually from No. 1 High School. He gazed at his disciples, troubled. If Li Yan and Li Ming faced Su-hong, they would likely be defeated. He needed to prevent the match to preserve his dignity. He quickly smiled, assuring Principal Li not to be upset. He explained that he was joking and that there would be no competition, referring to his own disciples as inferior compared to the students. Li Yan and Li Ming immediately agreed. Principal Li and Instructor Chen were infuriated, believing that these men were mocking them with sarcasm. Soon at the arena, a loud announcement called for match number 666, featuring Su-hong. From the stands, Su-hong's friend watched anxiously, noting that his opponent was a quasi-martial artist, which was unfortunate. He shouted to Su Hong, urging him not to overexert himself or risk injury so early in the match. The opponent, Chen Peng, stepped forward and asked Su Hong whether he intended to walk down or be beaten down. He clenched his fist, ready to charge confidently. But before he could react, Su Hong made her move. He vanished and reappeared instantly in front of Chen Peng. With a swift strike, he sent Chen Peng flying. The impact sent Chen Peng tumbling upside down, and he crashed heavily to the ground. Everyone stared in disbelief. One student asked when Su Hong had become so fierce, while the others remained speechless. Su Hong stood composed amid the smoke, and everyone recognized that he had defeated a quasi-martial artist with a single move. Su Hong stood calmly over his defeated opponent as the crowd erupted in disbelief. They wondered how he had become so powerful, with some speculating that he was already a Tier 1 martial artist. The announcement for the final match followed shortly after. In the stands, Instructor Chen watched Su Hong, puzzled about his background and why he had missed private tutoring. Principal Li regretted not having noticed him sooner. Principal Li regretted not training Su Hong sooner, feeling he had wasted a talent. Instructor Chen noted that Su Hong seemed familiar but couldn't recall where he had seen him before. They focused on the semifinal match between Chen Shan and Li Tu, observing that the winner would soon be determined. As they watched the fight, it became clear that the two competitors were evenly matched, making it difficult to predict a winner. On stage, Li Tu cautioned Chen Shan that, since they both employed the Three Eccles' Thunder Rush Fist, Chen would need to unleash his strongest move to secure victory. Li Tu then launched a powerful attack. Li Tu charged forward, slamming his fist down with explosive force. Chen Shan shouted as he blocked, the impact sending a gust of wind sweeping across the floor. Chen Shan's fist ignited with flames as he shouted at Li Tu to pay attention, proclaiming himself the true #1 in the school. The students exclaimed in disbelief that Chen Shan had mastered attribute externalization. They acknowledged a formidable fire attribute, which ranks just below thunder. Li Tu stepped forward with a smirk, energy swirling around his arm like water. He dismissed attribute externalization as nothing remarkable. The students gasped once more as they noticed that Li Tu also possessed externalized attributes. His were metallic, even more formidable than fire in battle. Metallic chains coiled around Li Tu's fists as he charged forward to strike. His punches resonated 5 times. Chen Shan was astonished to witness Li Tu unleash the 5 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist. A violent impact ensued as Li Tu's strike propelled his opponent backward, sending shockwaves throughout the arena. Principal Li and Instructor Chen were taken aback. Li observed that Li Tu had concealed his true abilities, while Chen was amazed that Li Tu had mastered attribute externalization and the micro-level Thunder Rush Fist in just 10 days. Principal Li deemed the final pointless. Su Hong couldn't surpass Li Tu's metal attribute. Chen sighed, noting that Su Hong might have had a chance if he had known a guidance technique. Zhang Ming confidently wagered 50,000 on Su Hong. Shocked, Li called him crazy for betting on someone without a guidance technique. Chen laughed, pleased to take the easy money. The final battle commenced. Li Tu faced off against Su Hong. Students cheered, some supporting Su Hong while others rallied for Li Tu. The fighters took their positions on the stage. Li Tu told Su Hong that he felt fortunate to have reached the finals without having to face either him or Chen Shan earlier. Su Hong stayed composed. Although the students appeared weak after hunting beasts, Li Tu finally seemed like a worthy adversary. Li Tu grinned as he referred to Su Hong as the second strongest. Su Hong casually inquired about who held the title of first. Li Tu stomped his foot, proclaiming that he was the one and only #1. He launched an attack, asserting that one move would reveal the significant gap between them. Students panicked as they witnessed Li Tu immediately employ the 5 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist. They feared it was already the end for Su Hong. However, Su Hong's eyes shimmered with a golden light as power surged within him. Flames erupted from his fist as he charged forward, eager to push the limits of his physical abilities. The crowd shouted that Su Hong was crazy for confronting the attack directly, instead of dodging it. Their fists collided with explosive force, shaking the ground beneath them. They continued to clash, sending bursts of energy rippling through the air. Su Hong faced the thunderous attack head-on. Li Tu was astonished that Su Hong halted his Five Echoes fist with just 5 punches. They continued to fight, their fists clashing in a flurry of blows amid swirling energy chains. Li Tu gritted his teeth. Each punch from Su Hong felt incredibly heavy, as if he were battling a monster. From the stands, a teacher exclaimed that Su Hong was evenly matched with Li Tu despite not using any martial skills. His friend shouted that his strength was truly impressive. The officials were taken aback. Chen suspected that Su Hong possessed a unique physique. Principal Li chuckled, proud that the school had nurtured such a talent. However, Chen observed that despite Su Hong's strength, Li Tu's condensed attribute still provided him with an advantage. The clash sent both of them sliding backward. Su Hong steadied his fiery fist, while Li Tu was pushed back several meters. Furious, Li Tu declared that he would emerge victorious. Blue lightning crackled around his arms as he charged up. He lunged forward, fists enveloped in energy chains, demanding that Su Hong accept defeat. Su Hong recognized that Li Tu was no longer holding back and was now attacking with full force. Since Li Tu gave it his all, Su Hong chose to show some respect. Flames erupted from his fist as he raced to confront the attack. Lightning flashed across the arena as Li Tu gasped in surprise, realizing that Su Hong could also harness attribute externalization. Principal Li and Instructor Chen trembled as golden lightning illuminated the arena, rendering them speechless. They were astonished that Su Hong had mastered the Thunder Guidance technique. Chen explained that a unique physique combined with the Thunder attribute made him formidable. Su Hong and Li Tu clashed once more, unleashing a storm of lightning and chains that erupted all around them. Li Tu was alarmed to discover that Su Hong's Thunder attribute surpassed his own Metal attribute. Lightning coiled around Su Hong as he informed Li Tu that now that he had revealed his ultimate move, he would respond appropriately. Su Hong's eyes gleamed with a golden light as he declared his ultimate move and charged forward with the Thunder Rush Fist. His strike landed with explosive force. The impacts reverberated quickly, pushing Li Tu backward as 9 echo bursts erupted throughout the arena. 9 echoes? Impossible! Li Tu shouted, blood spilling from his mouth as he fell to the ground. Su Hong loomed above him, thunder still crackling around his fists. The students fell silent, their faces frozen in sheer shock. Someone finally asked if he had won. Excitement erupted as they realized Su Hong had reached the perfect realm 9 echoes, surpassing even the teachers. Instructor Chen stuttered in disbelief, while Principal Li trembled as he proclaimed Su Hong not only a genius but also the dragon of Star City High. Chen wiped his sweat, picturing how devastated the other geniuses in the training camp would feel when confronted with a monster like Su Hong. As Su Hong walked away, Chen admired him, remarking that a golden carp transforms into a dragon when it encounters the wind. Star City felt too small for him. Principal Li concurred, predicting that Su Hong would soar like a dragon, shining the brightest in the imperial capital and on the battlefield of 10,000 races. Su Hong returned to his small apartment building just as the sun was setting. Inside, the atmosphere was cozy as Su Hong's uncle prepared a simple dinner. Su Hong announced that he was home, and his uncle promptly inquired about how the exam had gone that day. Smiling, Su Hong announced that he had secured first place in the monthly exam. His uncle was both shocked and overjoyed. Meanwhile, his aunt realized that this achievement meant he could finally attend the special training camp he had mentioned earlier. Suddenly, loud knocking at the door interrupted their celebration. A woman's voice rudely shouted from the hallway, asking if this was Su Hong's house. Su Hong opened the door, looking confused, while his uncle and aunt nervously peeked out from behind him to see who the stranger was. A well-dressed woman stood there, adorned in expensive clothing and jewelry. She introduced herself as the mother of a student named Lin Nian. She explained that since only the top 3 students could enter the training camp and her son ranked 4th, She had come to persuade Su Hong to relinquish his spot. She arrogantly presented a stack of cash, offering Su Hong 30,000 to withdraw so her son could take his spot. Su Hong and his family stared at her in silence, appearing more confused than enticed by the unexpected bribe. Frustrated by the lack of immediate results from the money, the woman became furious. She resorted to intimidation, shouting that the competition in the camp was incredibly brutal and that people could actually die there. She looked down on their poverty, sneering that, given their poor family background, giving up early was for his own good. She asserted that other students had access to high-grade pills and resources he couldn't afford. Her harsh words frightened Su Hong's aunt. She looked at her nephew with fear in her eyes, asking if what the woman said was true and whether it was really that dangerous. Su Hong's uncle gently placed a hand on his wife's back to soothe her, while Su Hong remained silent. Finally, the uncle turned to Su Hong, his face serious and sweaty, and asked if she could genuinely ensure his safety if he went. Su Hong stepped forward with confidence, asserting that he could ensure his own safety. The wealthy woman scoffed, questioning the uncle's belief in the promise of a child. In response, the uncle quickly defended his nephew, asserting that he trusted Su Hong as an adult and would never prioritize a stranger's word over his own family. Defeated, the woman was compelled to leave, and the door slammed shut behind her. In the hallway, she was seething with anger. Glancing back at the apartment, she cursed them, shouting that they were just waiting to be kicked out of the training camp. Inside, the atmosphere settled. Su Hong's uncle inquired whether Su Hong had intentionally concealed the camp's dangers from them. Su Hong attempted to reassure them that everything was fine. His uncle smiled widely and gave him a thumbs up. He acknowledged that he was a simple man, but he recognized that if Su Hong had the determination to confront such challenges, the family needed to support him wholeheartedly. Suddenly, his aunt slapped his uncle on the back to ease the tension, surprising both Su Hong and his uncle. She reassured him that they didn't care about his ranking. They only wanted him to stay safe. Su Hong smiled warmly and nodded, feeling relieved to receive their blessing. Later that night, Su Hong stood alone on the rooftop, gazing at the city skyline. He reflected on his uncle and aunt, aware that despite their encouraging words, they were secretly anxious. He vowed not to disappoint them and recognized the need to become stronger, to safeguard their new life. He opened his system interface and noticed he had earned 285 martial value points from the monthly exam, but he felt it wasn't sufficient. He glanced at his mortal body stat, which stood at 36.1%. Aware that he would encounter geniuses with formidable secret moves at the camp, he chose to concentrate on enhancing his physical abilities to compete effectively. He started allocating points to the mortal body stat. Red energy surged around him as the percentage gradually increased point by point. After the upgrade, steam emanated from his body. His mortal form had reached 64.6%. He recognized that he still had a long way to go before reaching 100% and pondered what special body type he would unlock upon completion. Suddenly, he noticed an unexpected surprise on his status screen. He was puzzled to see that both his Thunder Guidance technique and Heavenly Flame Guidance technique had leveled up to level 2 without him even realizing it. Su Hong realized he had only practiced the guidance techniques for a few days without any special effort. He began to wonder if there were no additional requirements and whether simply practicing regularly was enough for them to level up. Determined to test his theory right away, he declared that he would attempt to level up once more. Lightning crackled in one hand while flames blazed in the other as he started to gather his energy. The following morning, the sun rose at dawn, illuminating the skyscrapers of the city. Su Hong opened his eyes, his gaze sharp and focused after a night of training. He sat cross-legged, enveloped in a powerful aura of fire and electricity. His hard work had finally paid off. A message appeared, confirming that both his Thunder Guidance technique and Heavenly Flame Guidance technique had successfully upgraded to level 3. He checked his status panel with satisfaction. Not only had his techniques leveled up, but his vitality had also increased by 3 points, reaching a total of 126 in unexpected bonus. His mortal body progress stood at 64.6%, and he had exhausted all his martial value. Later that morning, Su Hong stood outside his apartment building, prepared to leave for the training camp with his weapon slung over his shoulder. His aunt gazed at him with deep concern, urging him to stay safe and reminding him that if things didn't work out, he could always come home. His uncle interrupted, telling his wife not to speak such sad words. He waved enthusiastically at Su Hong, encouraging him to attend the camp and secure another first-place victory. Su Hong smiled, agreed, and turned to leave. As Su Hong walked down the deserted street, his uncle's courageous act began to unravel. He stood there, trembling, watching his nephew's retreating figure. Tears streamed down the uncle's face as he finally allowed his emotions to surface. His aunt teased him, asking if he wasn't just as worried as she was. The uncle confessed that he was, but he had kept it inside, fearing that if he revealed his fear, Su Hong would become anxious about them. As Su Hong strolled down the street with his weapon in hand, he sensed something approaching. He glanced up just as a red sports car raced around the corner and screeched to a halt beside him. The window rolled down to reveal President Wu Lingxian, who was wearing sunglasses. She calmly instructed him to get in. Before long, they were racing down the highway. Su Hong asked the president why she had come to see him personally. Wu Lingxian kept her eyes on the road and explained that she had important reminders regarding the training camp. She turned to him with a serious expression and revealed that, as president, she was aware of the details concerning the other participants. I warned him that among the students, there were a few monsters who were already high-stage Tier 1 martial artists and were on the verge of reaching Tier 2. She stressed that these monsters possessed martial skills rated at least B rank. Su Hong listened and contemplated the situation. He understood that a Tier 2 martial artist required 200 vitality points, a significant gap. However, he felt no fear. He reassured himself that even if they possessed B-rank skills, his system would enable him to learn those advanced skills quickly. Wu Lingxian continued, telling him that although his talent was the best she had ever witnessed, he lacked the resources that the other wealthy students possessed. She reassured him, saying that even if he encountered failure at the camp, he shouldn't feel disheartened, as surpassing them was merely a matter of time for him. Su Hong smiled warmly and expressed her gratitude, referring to her as Sister Wu. Wu Lingxian observed him quietly, noting his calm demeanor despite being aware that his stats and skills were currently lower than those of the others. She reassured herself that his mindset wouldn't pose any issues. The black van transporting the students navigated the picturesque roads of the Tianlin Mountains. Inside, the students were in a panic. Li Tu and Li Ming were astonished to learn that the camp was located in an area known for its fierce beasts. President Wu Lingxian attempted to reassure them, explaining that a grandmaster was overseeing the camp so their lives were not at risk. Su Hong sat quietly, assessing the situation. He understood that this area encompassed several cities and was rich in spiritual energy, but it also housed beast kings on par with Tier 7th grandmasters. It was a place ruled by the law of the jungle, where beasts fought fiercely. The danger was significant. Even a typical Tier 2 martial artist would hesitate to venture here. As the car raced through the forest, the local wildlife started to pay attention. From the shadows, glowing red eyes of bears and monsters glared menacingly at the intruders. Sensing the killing intent from the woods, Li Tu and Li Ming broke into a nervous sweat, fearing that a beast might suddenly attack their vehicle. However, Su Hong felt a surge of excitement. He recognized that the camp competition would be as ruthless as the slaughter of beasts, and he found himself enjoying that intense sensation. Eventually, they reached the campsite and mingled with the growing crowd. As they stood there, one student wondered aloud about the strength of the other participants. They spotted a group of formidable young martial artists, each wearing serious expressions and exuding strength. Under the pressure from their rivals, Li Tu and Li Ming remained in uncomfortable silence. Su Hong gathered his companions, flashing a confident smile to indicate it was time to go. Weapon slung over his shoulder, he marched forward alongside Li Tu and Li Ming. Suddenly, a hand blocked their way. An official in a suit announced that they needed to wait for everyone before starting the camp entrance assessment. surprising the students who hadn't anticipated a test so soon. Su Hong observed the arriving participants with irritation as luxury cars navigated through the mud, reflecting on how the wealthy families made everyone wait. As the bodyguards opened the doors of the luxury vehicles, the atmosphere changed instantly. Three notable figures emerged, capturing the admiration of onlookers. Students murmured about Xiao Nan, a woman with orange hair, Lin Jing dressed in white, and Wang Tiantua, the muscular son of the city lord, often referred to as the barbarian god. The elites strode with an air of superiority, while ordinary students stepped aside to let them pass. As they settled into their positions, the tension in the air heightened. Su Hong identified them as the geniuses the president had mentioned. However, rather than feeling fear, he was excited to witness their abilities. The assessment commenced with the official speaking to the gathered students. He revealed that the actual training camp was located 30 kilometers deep in the Tianlin Mountains. To participate, each student required a special token. These tokens were surgically implanted inside local beasts, necessitating a hunt to secure their place. This sparked anxiety. Li Ming and Li Tu whispered nervously, aware that a 30-kilometer journey could be perilous. In the depths of the mountains, even a single mistake involving high-level beasts could prove fatal. Su Hong remained undeterred. He viewed the 8-hour limit as an opportunity to slay additional beasts and accumulate more martial value. One student inquired about the possibility of encountering a beast beyond their level. The official coldly responded that they would be eliminated, although a rescue team would be there to prevent their death. The crowd protested that the rules were unfair and based on luck, fearing that the strong could be eliminated due to a chance encounter. The official snapped, stating that the world isn't fair and likening their complaints to protesting on the true battlefield of the heavens. He shouted that the rules of the battlefield were straightforward: avoid risks, intimidate the weak, and rely on numbers. If they feared powerful beasts, they needed to exercise greater caution. A young man in a suit concurred with the official. He scoffed at the complainers, labeling them as trash and urging them to quit if they were afraid. This provoked a tough student who confronted him. The man in the suit labeled him a coward and threatened to incapacitate him. The official interrupted, stating that while violence was prohibited at base camp, it was permitted in the mountains. Snatching tokens or attacking others was deemed acceptable. The two students glared at each other, identifying one another as future targets. Su Hong recognized that the camp promoted fighting and suspected that half of the participants would be eliminated early on. A new opportunity sparked in his mind. If fighting were encouraged, this assessment would be a goldmine. Battling these geniuses could be an excellent way to gain martial value. The officials cut the discussion short and pressed a button to initiate the test. The students immediately burst into a frenzy, racing into the forest with determination to succeed. In the woods, the man in the suit chased the rugged student, mocking him and vowing to send him home. They squared off, channeling their energy into their fists for a powerful strike. Their attacks collided, creating a shockwave that reverberated through the trees. A heated exchange ensued, with energy beams illuminating the forest as they battled. From a high branch, Su Hong watched the battle with a critical eye. He wanted to assess the geniuses, but found them unimpressive. Their power was weak, and defeating them wouldn't provide much martial value. Choosing to leave, he decided to pursue high-level beasts instead. Below, the fighters found themselves in a stalemate. The suited man sneered, claiming that a pauper could never match his family's resources. In response, the rugged student shouted back in anger. Upon hearing the word pauper, Su Hong froze in his tracks. It struck a nerve. Su Hong turned around with a dangerous glint in his eye, realizing he couldn't let this opportunity for martial value slip away. He approached the fighters and instructed them to stop. Holding a wooden club, he casually proposed that they play with him instead. Furious, the suited man called Su Hong a pauper and threatened him, while the other student questioned why he had intervened. Su Hong smirked as he explained that he didn't want them to stop fighting altogether. Instead, he suggested they unite against him. Feeling insulted, the rugged student abandoned his opponent and charged at Su Hong. Su Hong responded with a powerful knee strike to the stomach, propelling the student backward. The student gasped in pain as they collapsed in a heap. The suited man stared in disbelief, unable to understand how a student of comparable strength could be defeated so effortlessly. Before he could fully comprehend the situation, Su Hong suddenly appeared before him with blinding speed and said, "Your turn." Paralyzed with fear, the man watched as Su Hong swung the club. The blow landed, knocking the man to the ground and bringing the fight to an end. The man in the suit soared through the air before crashing violently into a tree. He screamed as his eyes rolled back, utterly overwhelmed by the impact. On the ground, Su Hong stood calmly with a wooden stick resting on his shoulder. Glancing at the two defeated men, he remarked that this is what they get for underestimating ordinary cultivators. In the monitoring room, instructors observed the fight on a large screen. One questioned the origin of the newcomer, expressing frustration that he had simply walked in and taken out both men in their duel with a single blow. Another inquired whether the two were now eliminated. The supervisor shook his head, clarifying that since they hadn't requested rescue, the assessment would proceed. A staff member bowed and acknowledged the request. In the forest, the man in the suit groaned as he opened his eyes. Cradling his aching face, he muttered about the intensity of the pain. As he stood up, panic surged through him at the sight of the nearby wooden stick. He scrambled back, shouting for Su Hong to keep her distance. The defeated man screamed in fury, declaring that he had never felt so humiliated, and swore that Su Hong better not let him find him again. The other man also awoke against a tree, clutching his chest. He muttered in frustration, blaming himself for underestimating Su Hong and insisting that he wouldn't have lost if he had taken it seriously. Two men sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment, both nursing their bruised pride. One of them then apologized, acknowledging the other's true strength. The man in the suit agreed and expressed regret for mocking him. They shook hands as their hostility dissipated. They soon walked side by side through the forest like brothers. They agreed to find Su Hong and seek revenge, with the man in the suit resolved to strike him with the stick to release his frustration. Meanwhile, Su Hong dashed through the forest, spear in hand, leaving trails of blue energy in his wake. Su Hong's eyes narrowed as he detected movement ahead. Although his expression remained calm, he sensed trouble approaching. Moments later, a herd of giant tusked boars burst from the trees, their red eyes glowing as they charged. Su Hong grumbled about encountering yet another group of low-tier boars, wondering how many he had already faced in the beast-filled mountain range. The boars snorted and kicked up dust as they drew near, their massive tusks slicing through the air. The herd charged toward him in unison, their hooves thundering against the ground. As they approached, Su Hong's eyes gleamed with a golden flash, his focus sharpening. In an instant, golden lightning erupted around him. He swung his spear in a wide arc, and glowing lines of lightning sliced through the charging boars, illuminating the area. Bathed in golden light, Su Hong's spear struck the boars, sending them crashing to the ground amid clouds of dust and shockwaves. After the fight, Su Hong stood among the fallen beasts while system screens displayed his martial Tao points. He observed that as he grew stronger, the points he earned from defeating weaker beasts had significantly diminished. Sighing, he stated that he needed to hurry and find a token before he began to cut open the boar's stomach with his spear. As he searched the bodies, he muttered that the last dozen low-tier beasts he had killed yielded no tokens. Hoping this batch would be different, he examined each boar one by one. Every corpse was devoid of contents. As he had anticipated, there were no tokens. He deduced that only higher-level beasts were likely to carry them. Half an hour later, he was racing through the forest once more, his spear slicing through the wind. As he ran deeper, he remembered how he used to encounter over 10 low-level beasts per hour in this area. Now he couldn't find a single one. Suddenly, a roar broke the silence. A massive black tiger with glowing red eyes sprang from the trees, lunging at him with astonishing speed. Su Hong's eyes gleamed blue as he smiled, recognizing the creature. He had finally discovered a Tier 1 upper stage Dark Knight black tiger. Blue energy gathered at his fingertips, swirling and intensifying before it erupted outward. He thrust his glowing finger downward and a piercing blue beam shot into the tiger, splitting the ground beneath it. The Dark Knight black tiger let out a roar of pain, blood spraying from its wide-open jaws. The tiger fell to the ground with a thud, cracking the earth beneath it. It twitched and struggled as dust swirled around. Without hesitation, Su Hong tightened his grip on the spear and lunged forward with astonishing speed. As he spun through the air, his glowing spear struck the tiger's head. Blue energy erupted outward, and the beast let out one final roar before succumbing. The screen displayed that he had earned 35 martial Tao points. He remarked that, with his current strength, defeating a high-tier beast was as effortless as breathing. He crouched beside the corpse and began to search, hoping that the high-tier tiger had a token inside. After cutting it open, he paused before pulling out a blood-covered token. He chuckled softly, confirming that it was indeed inside the high-tier beast. It had taken him nearly 3 hours to find just one token. Holding the token, Su Hong reflected on his experiences. Low-tier boars were abundant, while high-tier tigers surfaced only every half hour. He understood that, as he ventured deeper, the beasts grew stronger but became increasingly rare. He glanced at the tiger's corpse. While high-tier beasts awarded more points, encountering just one every 30 minutes was inefficient. Hunting the more abundant low-level beasts would yield points more quickly. Holding the token, he smiled. He chose to prioritize quantity over quality to earn points. He pressed on, resolute in his goal to use the remaining 5 hours to accumulate enough points to fully maximize his mortal body progress. As he continued walking, he stumbled upon a blood-soaked clearing scattered with the dismembered corpses of deer. The ground was scattered with the corpses of boars he had slain. As Su Hong dispatched another boar with his bare hands, a massive bear with glowing red eyes charged at him, swinging its claws downward. He evaded the sudden attack with remarkable speed, spinning to the side. Flames enveloped his fist as he charged forward, realizing that after slaying dozens of low-tier beasts, he had finally encountered a mid-tier one. His fiery punch shot forward like a cannon, propelling the bear into the air and through the forest. The bear crashed into a rock wall, roaring in agony and coughing up blood as it fought to rise. In the bear's trembling eye, Su Hong was already preparing to leap in for another strike. He slammed his fist down, unleashing a beam of fiery energy into the bear's head, the impact sending shock waves through the ground. The force pulled the bear along the ground until it collided with a large tree, breaking the trunk. As the dust settled, Su Hong stood covered in blood and dirt. He calmly observed that with over 60% of his mortal body intact, he could defeat mid-tier beasts using only his physical strength. A system panel appeared displaying his stats and 254 martial Tao points. He needed just over 100 more to fully max out his mortal body progress, which stood at 64.6%. The panel also showcased his level 3 guiding arts and martial skills, all in pristine condition. Tightening his grip on his weapon, Su Hong realized he had to make the most of the remaining 3 hours to collect the points he still needed. Before he could make a move, a thunderous roar reverberated through the trees. Su Hong froze, sweat beading on his face as the noise echoed around him. What was that sound, he wondered. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed over him. A gigantic golden bird with glowing wings descended, stirring leaves and wind. As its golden feathers shimmered like fire, he realized it could be the legendary Golden Rock Beast King. The beast screeched and dove, its body enveloped in blazing energy. The force of its descent ripped through the forest, unleashing violent shockwaves. Su Hong steadied himself, gripping his spear as the wind howled around him. The Beast King's power was fearsome. A single flap of its wings had unleashed this devastating shockwave. A violent crash resonated as a massive tree split, its trunk snapping under immense pressure. Su Hong jumped onto a broken stone as a shock wave surged past. The wind howled around him as he steadied himself, gazing at the sky and pondering what creature could unleash such power. Pressed against a cliff, sweat glistening on his face, he acknowledged his complacency. Confronted by such overwhelming power, he recognized that he was merely an ant compared to top-tier experts. His eyes widened as he noticed something else approaching high in the sky. The golden rock beast king soared with its wings outstretched. A second figure approached, radiating golden light. It was rank 7 Grandmaster Qin Tianli, enveloped in a fierce, flaming aura. He introduced himself as Qin Tianli, stating that he was borrowing the territory and inquiring about the Beast King's return. The Golden Rock Beast King swooped down with its claws extended, declaring that it had never agreed to lend its territory. Qin Tianli surged forward like a golden firestorm, shouting that he would defeat the Beast King until it complied. The two forces clashed in midair. The rock's wings shimmered gold as it twisted. Qin Tianli's punch struck its feathers with a powerful impact, and the beast flapped its wings again, letting out a sharp cry. Light spiraled around it, sending a shockwave that forced Qin Tianli back. He steadied himself, annoyed by the commotion. Yelling that the rock was too noisy, he rushed in again, resulting in a rapid series of impacts. Explosions of golden energy repeatedly struck the beast, illuminating the sky as they collided violently in midair. Qin Tianli's punch struck the Beast King's head, scattering feathers and blood. The force of the blow sent the enormous creature staggering backward. Floating serenely in his golden aura, Qin Tianli spoke in a chilling tone. He announced that he was borrowing this land and commanded the beast to depart, cautioning it not to make him repeat himself. The beast screeched in anger as it flew off, calling for Qin Tianli to wait. Qin Tianli waved dismissively, telling it to go away. As the beast vanished, Qin Tianli inhaled slowly, golden light swirling around him. His voice resonated throughout the area as he declared himself rank 7 Grandmaster Qin Tianli, urging the trainees to remain calm while the assessment proceeded. Far below, Su Hong gazed up in astonishment as golden rings of power radiated through the sky. He clenched his jaw, pondering whether this was a true strength of a rank 7 martial artist. With determination in his eyes, he promised himself that he would one day reach that realm. High above, Qin Tianli descended toward the base. Below, the crater-like area was filled with buildings designated for the assessment. Hovering above the officials, Qin Tianli expressed his frustration that the beast should have simply agreed. He only wanted to borrow the territory for a trial, but it had forced him into a fight. The staff stood at attention. Among them, rank 5 martial artists Lin Zi and Bai Mu expressed their admiration, noting that Grandmaster Qin was even more formidable than rumored, having defeated the notoriously tough Golden Rock Beast King. Qin Tianli dismissed the praise and directed them to the monitoring room. He wanted to observe which trainees had withstood the pressure of the Golden Rock earlier, and the staff followed suit. Inside the surveillance room, the monitors displayed trainees who had collapsed from the shockwave. Lin Zi explained that most were immobilized by the aura of the Golden Rock. Qin Tianli stared in surprise. On one screen, a trainee knelt beside the lifeless black tigers, remaining calm despite the pressure from the beasts. Who is that boy? Qin Tianli wondered. Bai Mu reviewed the documents, revealing a 95% fire affinity. He possesses the barbarian god physique and is the son of the Star City Castellan. Qin Tianli raised an eyebrow, observing that the Castellan treated having children like a lottery, finally producing a promising one after 100 attempts. Another trainee emerged, demonstrating remarkable speed as he escaped the pressure zone. Impressive movement skills, Qin Tianli remarked. Bai Mu recognized him as Lin Xinghe, a Tier 1 high tier from the Lin family, possessing 325 blood chi and 96% wind affinity. The footage revealed a girl employing a glowing barrier for protection. Qin Tianli recognized her as a spiritual telekinetic, adeptly utilizing her abilities to withstand the pressure. Bai Mu identified her as Xia Yayan, a mid-stage Tier 1 telekinetic from the Xiayao family, possessing a blood chi of 290. and a 95% affinity for wood. Qin Tianli nodded, observing that these three managed the pressure well and surpassed their peers. He inquired about other talents. Bai Mu provided additional names from the Lin and Wang families, but hesitated, realizing that all the top performers came from Star City's renowned families. Qin Tianli frowned as Bai Mu explained that all the individuals on the list possessed Tier 2 combat power and could withstand the aura. He questioned why every standout came from a major family and inquired about the students from the schools, particularly number 1 high. Bai Mu explained that the school students were only at the early Tier 1 stage, with the 3 from number 1 high just having recently broken through. Ken Tianli waved his hand dismissively, stating he wouldn't bother looking as he believed number 1 high was unworthy of its reputation. Lindsay gasped in surprise, pointing at someone on the screen. All three turned to look. The screen displayed Su Hong taking down a beast. They were astonished that he still had the strength to hunt after enduring the pressure of the Golden Rock. Ba Mu trembled and stuttered. "That's the monster from Star City number 1 high." Lindsay reprimanded her, instructing her not to create a scene in front of the Grandmaster. Qin Tianli remained silent, but after Lindsay glanced at the report, he too began to shake and exclaimed with wide eyes, "Monster!" Qin Tianli glanced at them, reminding the two rank 5s that they should have encountered many geniuses before. He inquired why they were making such a fuss, awkwardly noting that their temperaments still weren't steady. However, when Qin Tianli read the report, his eyes widened in shock. He screamed internally, questioning whether the boy was even human. The report detailed Su Hong's profile, an 18-year-old from number 1 high, classified as Tier 1 early stage, blood-shy, with a ranking of 1 in 23. He had mastered a C-Cranks art, generating 3 Thirton 4 combat power, which rivaled that of a Tier 1 high level. Additionally, he likely possessed a special physique, boasting a 100% affinity for all 7 elements, and was cultivating all 7 simultaneously. Qin Tianli trembled, muttering in disbelief that someone like this could emerge from a place like Star City. He realized that this individual wasn't just a once-in-a-century talent. They were a once-in-a-millennium rarity. His shock transformed into joy. Clenching the paper, his eyes shining red with excitement, he shouted, "I've struck gold!" He paused, clearly confused, and questioned why someone so talented was only at Tier 1 early stage with blood-shy, 1 in 23. Bai Mu quickly clarified that Su Hong was simultaneously cultivating all 7 guiding techniques. Grandmaster Ken erupted in frustration. "No wonder he's so weak," he said. Cultivating 7 techniques simultaneously was a futile endeavor, even for an immortal. He wondered how Su Hong could make any progress at all, grumbling that the local martial arts association president should have intervened. At that moment, a staff member informed them that the trainees were arriving at the camp. Ken nodded and suggested they go check it out. Outside, the first 3 trainees welcomed him. Wang Tiantuo saluted, introducing himself as a junior. Ken complimented the trio, saying they were excellent. 6 hours into the assessment, more students staggered toward the camp. Some complained that they nearly died, but another reminded them they had confronted the Golden Rock Beast King. After 7.5 hours, more trainees arrived. As Ken observed, some of the early arrivals claimed that no one else was left and proposed ending the assessment. Another scoffed, suggesting that anyone still out there must be weak. Grandmaster Ken couldn't help but wonder where Su Hong was. He felt a twinge of panic at the thought that his newly discovered talent might be lost or eliminated. A few minutes later, Ken finally saw a figure emerging from the forest. He sighed in relief, believing the brat had finally arrived. He emerged from the woods, dragging his spear, his clothes stained with dirt and blood. He muttered that he had made it just in time, having been so focused on earning martial value that he nearly forgot the deadline. As he entered the camp, the trainees stared in disbelief. One whispered that Su Hong was ruthless, while another remarked on his lack of injuries and speculated about how many beasts he must have killed to get so dirty. 2 men, whom Su Hong had embarrassed earlier, glared at him. One shouted that he had been waiting for him, but the other interrupted. "Don't rush," he said. "We'll have plenty of opportunities inside the camp." Nearby, the three elite trainees observed Su Hong. One referred to him as an expert for meeting the deadline, while another found the situation intriguing. Wang Tiantu, with his eyes closed, merely nodded in acknowledgement. As the sun set, Instructor Lin Shi stepped forward to announce that the 8-hour limit had ended. Anyone not present would be eliminated. He then proceeded to introduce the camp's facilities and rules. Instructor Lin introduced the key facilities, which included a gravity room, a movement skill training room, and a fierce beast combat room. He gestured toward a large building, the martial arts pavilion. There, trainees could use contribution points to purchase martial arts techniques, pills, and weapons, some reaching as high as rank. Hearing this, a calm Su Hong, covered in blood, sat among the trainees. He felt that coming here was the right choice. However, Instructor Lin then explained the rules. All facilities required contribution points for usage. Points could only be earned by successfully completing training subjects, with exceptional performance leading to additional rewards. As the sun set, he sent them away. He instructed those with energy to begin training while leading the injured to the dorms for rest, promising that no one would die under his watch. Su Hong entered his dorm and was surprised to discover it was a single room. He realized he could now cultivate and level up without being observed. Later, he sat cross-legged on his bed and opened his status screen, which displayed his stats: Blood Chi at 126, Spirit at 26.5, and Mortal Body at 64.6%. His Thunder and Heavenly Flame guiding techniques were at level 3, and his 3 martial arts had reached perfection. With a martial value of 354, he took a deep breath and resolved to use all of it to upgrade his mortal body. A surge of power enveloped him in red flames. Countless glowing notifications emerged, each indicating that his mortal body was growing stronger as the red energy intensified. At last, a message appeared. His mortal body had reached 100% and was now evolving. His eyes flew open, glowing with a crimson light, while his breath surged like a tempest. Su Hong's physical transformation commenced, with intense red energy and glowing nodes spreading across his newly fortified body. He sat on the floor of his dorm room, meditating as a powerful vortex of spiritual energy swirled around him. As the process concluded, he let out a sigh, steam rising from his polished form. As he examined his physique, he was astonished by the sheer power his body now held. His system interface appeared, indicating that he had unlocked the Overlord body, described by the system as the entity with the strongest physical strength in the world. He observed that the physique was currently at 0% spirit rank, indicating it could still be upgraded. This left him curious about what extraordinary form it might evolve into next. Eager to explore the capabilities of his remarkable new body, he grabbed his jacket and black spear. However, as soon as he grasped the spear's shaft, the metal crunched and cracked beneath his grip. He stared at the weapon in disbelief, realizing that his once casual grip had become strong enough to snap a highly durable C-crank alloy. He briefly panicked, lamenting that C-crank spears were exceedingly expensive and that he had just squandered a fortune. Fortunately, he quickly recalled that he had looted this spear for free during his time in the wilderness. Aware that his old equipment could no longer withstand his strength, he resolved to gather camp contribution points as soon as possible to trade for an A-rank alloy spear. Striding confidently from his room into the hallway, he considered his next move, pondering whether he could effortlessly earn those points by training with a weight vest weighing a few hundred kilograms. Inside the camp warehouse, a group of trainees gathered in awe around Wang Tiantua. Despite bearing a hefty 3,000-kilogram load, Wang Tiantua effortlessly leaped into the air. Watching from the sidelines, Lin Xingwei and Xiahou Nan were astonished by his monstrous strength, observing that an ordinary Tier 1 martial artist could manage only a fraction of that load. While watching the warehouse feed from the monitoring room, Grandmaster Qin Tianli commended Wang Tiantua's barbarian god body. The conversation then turned to Su Hong. Bai Mu inquired about how they should address Su Hong's flawed approach to simultaneously cultivating 7 guidance techniques. Understanding that directly confronting a proud genius could lead to negative consequences, Qin Tianli opted to let Su Hong discover his mistake the hard way. Xin Tianli inquired with instructor Lin Zhe about the status of a covertly planned night raid intended to ambush the trainees. Lin Zhe smiled mischievously, relishing the despair of the students who mistakenly thought they could finally relax after the entrance exam. 2. To carry out his plan, Qin Tianli specifically instructed Lin Zhe to send a formidable Tier 1 high-stage martial artist to decisively defeat Su Hong. Once Su Hong was thoroughly crushed, Qin Tianli intended to intervene, explain the futility of his cultivation method, and compel him to abandon it. The staff were concerned that pitting Su Hong against an opponent with over 400 vitality and 5,000 combat power could permanently damage his spirit, especially considering his significantly lower vitality stats. Qin Tianli coldly dismissed their concerns, asserting that if Su Hong's resolve could crumble so easily, he was nothing more than trash. Meanwhile, outside in the camp, Su Hong overheard fellow trainees hurrying to the gravity room to watch Wang Tiantuo train. Preferring to steer clear of the crowd, Su Hong entered the now empty equipment warehouse, intending to investigate the commotion later. Inside the equipment warehouse, Su Hong picked up his smart scoring bracelet, verifying that it was the device used to calculate his contribution points. As he explored the room, walking past the lighter equipment racks before stopping in amazement at a rack displaying 10-ton weight vests made from super-heavy alloy. He wondered who could possibly wear something so heavy. Curious about his limits, he donned a 10-ton vest, but soon discovered that its immense weight significantly impaired his speed and stamina, rendering it impractical for long-term training. He opted to exchange it for a 5-ton vest instead. After quickly moving around the warehouse to assess his mobility, he determined that the 5-ton load was ideally suited to his current physical condition. As Su Hong considered his competition, he speculated on the weight that Wang Tiantuo and the other top-tier geniuses might be carrying. Given that they were at the Tier 1 high stage, he assumed they were at least as strong as he was, if not stronger. Eager to learn from their cultivation techniques, he left the warehouse to observe them. Outside, a large crowd had gathered in front of a pyramid-shaped gravity room. The trainees were amazed that Wang Tiantuo had entered the facility without removing his 3-ton weight vest. The monitor showed Wang Tiantuo struggling inside the room under twice the normal gravity, which the crowd observed effectively transformed his 3-ton vest into a grueling 6-ton burden. Standing at the back of the crowd with his arms crossed, Su Hong was genuinely surprised to learn that Wang Tiantuo's base vest weighed only 3 tons. He found that weight remarkably light compared to his own comfortable 5 tons, and he realized he had significantly underestimated the toughness and superiority of his newly evolved overlord body. Su Hong approached his former classmates, Chen Shan and Li Tu, and inquired why they weren't entering the gravity room to train. Looking defeated, the two explained that the vast disparity in strength between themselves and the top-tier geniuses left them feeling utterly inadequate. They feared the embarrassment of being compared to those elites if they trained at that moment. Su Hong sighed and patted one of them on the shoulder, feeling disappointed that their pride and fear of comparison were hindering their growth. Disregarding their warnings to wait for the crowd to disperse, Su Hong confidently approached the brightly lit, pyramid-shaped gravity room. The gathered onlookers quickly began to mock him, believing he was arrogantly attempting to surpass Wang Tiantuo's record. They labeled him brainless and shameless, particularly since he didn't seem to be wearing a weight suit. Unfazed by their taunts, Su Hong entered the facility, noting that such costly, well-funded amenities were typically reserved for elite aristocratic families. He recognized this as a rare opportunity he couldn't afford to miss. In the high-tech room, Su Hong assessed his limits. He realized that since he was secretly wearing a 5-ton weight vest under his tracksuit, setting the room to double gravity would subject his body to 10 tons of force-crushing load he could only withstand for about 10 minutes. Opting to pace himself for longer training sessions, he adjusted the control dial to 1.5 times normal gravity. Suddenly, the heightened pressure enveloped him, and he grunted as his body struggled to withstand the heavy, invisible force. Unaware of the hidden 5-ton vest he wore, the crowd outside watched his struggles on the monitor and laughed. They mocked him for barely managing 1.5 times gravity without any extra weights, reinforcing their belief that he was simply weak, especially since he had been the last to complete the entrance assessment. Meanwhile, fully immersed in his training, Su Hong sat cross-legged on the floor, enveloped in a fiery red aura. He recognized that although the intense pressure made it much harder to cultivate his guidance technique, the top-notch facility was fulfilling its purpose as his cultivation speed had significantly increased. After enduring intense pressure for 2 hours, Su Hong remained seated on the floor of the gravity room, cultivating while surrounded by a fierce red aura. Sweating profusely and pushing his limits, he concentrated on his training, his eyes shimmering with a piercing blue light. His hard work paid off when he checked his system panel. He noted with satisfaction that his water, earth, and wind guidance techniques had all advanced by 1 level, and his vitality had increased from 126 to 130 points. Struggling to his feet, he finally switched off the gravity machine. Impressed by the room's effectiveness, he eagerly contemplated the benefits of the camp's movement techniques and the ferocious beast rooms. Completely drained, he staggered out of the facility, wiping the heavy sweat from his brow. While waiting outside, 2 other trainees began to mock him. Still under the mistaken belief that he had been training without weights at just 1.5x gravity, they laughed at his exhausted appearance, with one arrogantly claiming he could easily sleep overnight in those conditions. Ignoring their unfounded taunts, Su Hong merely grumbled about the sweltering heat and poor breathability of his gear before unzipping his tracksuit, casually exposing the hefty 5-ton weight vest he had been wearing all along. The 2 mocking trainees were left utterly paralyzed in shock upon seeing the heavy equipment concealed beneath his clothes. The 2 trainees were surprised when Su Hong took off his weight vest, thinking it weighed only about 500 kilograms. Although he recognized that his endurance was adequate for 2 hours, they still regarded him with disdain as he dropped the vest to the ground, insisting he was nothing compared to the camp's top talent, Wang Tiantuo. Suddenly, a commotion erupted as the crowd spotted Wang Tiantuo finally emerging from the gravity room. The trainees were in awe that he had endured 6 tons of pressure for more than 2 hours. Sweating heavily and panting, Wang Tiantuo emerged as the crowd praised his physical strength, declaring it the best in the training camp. He unfastened his heavyweight vest and tossed it carelessly to the floor. The massive impact shook the ground, startling the nearby trainees. Feeling relieved to be free of the immense burden, Wang Tiantuo massaged his sore shoulder and acknowledged that the weight had been incredibly grueling. Lin Xingyi then approached Wang Tiantuo, casually fanning himself, and challenged him to a competition in the movement technique room. Wang Tiantuo promptly declined, recognizing that Lin Xingyi had mastered an A-rank wind attribute movement technique and admitting it would be foolish to compete against him in agility. Upon overhearing their conversation, Su Hong was immediately captivated by the mention of an A-rank movement technique. Recognizing that, despite the immense raw power of his newly evolved overlord body, he still lacked high-level agility skills, Su Hong smiled at the perfect opportunity to enhance his arsenal. Joining the crowd, Su Hong entered the dome-shaped movement technique training room, eager to see the A-rank flying swan startling Cloud step for himself. Inside, the trainees stared at the monitors in disbelief as they observed Lin Xingyi confidently setting the room's arrow-dodging simulation to its highest difficulty level, 10. On the screen, Lin Xingyi moved with astonishing speed, effortlessly navigating through a dense barrage of rapidly flying arrows. He moved with such grace that he even closed his eyes mid-air, skillfully dodging the projectiles while mysteriously conjuring falling pink petals, leaving the audience in awe of his effortless showboating. As he watched the spectacular display, Su Hong calmly praised the technique. Almost immediately, his system interface appeared, indicating that by simply observing the skill in action, he had successfully copied the flying swan startling cloud step and unlocked it at 1% proficiency. Su Hong closely observed Lin Xingyi's elegant movements. He stepped forward to try the technique himself, drawing the attention of nearby onlookers. The crowd erupted in laughter, mocking him for believing he could master a complex A-rank movement technique after just a single viewing. Disregarding their taunts, Su Hong's consciousness entered the virtual training space of his system, where he faced off against a simulated clone of Lin Xingyi. Through intense practice and evading rapid attacks, his proficiency in the skill soared, rising from 8 to an impressive 93%. A system notification soon congratulated him on officially achieving the basic level of the technique. Su Hong stood triumphantly, excited to have acquired his first A-rank movement skill. As the system readied to return him to reality, Su Hong found it somewhat embarrassing to rely on Lin Xingyi's flashy movements as a learning template. Feeling confident that he no longer required the movement technique room, he chose his next destination, the ferocious beast room, where he could hunt creatures to earn martial value and boost his vitality. However, his train of thought was interrupted when he noticed the entire crowd staring at him and taking pictures with their phones, admiring his dramatically flashy pose. To his utter embarrassment, Su Hong realized that while he was training mentally, his physical body in the real world had been performing all the exaggerated, showy poses. Deeply embarrassed, he sprinted away from the scene at full speed, ignoring the crowd's cheers urging him to perform again. He silently vowed never to use Lin Xingyi as a template again. As he dashed off, Su Hong's keen senses detected the sensation of being followed. Trailing a short distance behind him were the student in the suit, now wielding a wooden club, and the rugged student he had defeated during the entrance assessment. Having followed Su Hong's path to the ferocious beast room, the two vengeful trainees planned to block the exit and ambush him as soon as he emerged. Upon arriving at the expansive facility known as the ferocious beast room, Su Hong observed a sizable crowd gathered outside. Near the entrance doors, he overheard a tense conversation between Wang Tiantua and Xiao Nan. Wang Tiantua laughed, pointing out that Xiao Nan wanted to compete with him in hunting beasts to see who was truly the top trainee in the camp. Wang Tiantua arrogantly questioned whether she truly believed her spiritual telekinesis could overcome his barbarian god body, sensing that he was being underestimated. In reply, Xiao Nan confidently asserted that he was the one underestimating the true power of a spirit master. Intrigued by the mention of a spirit master and a fighting style he had never encountered, Su Hong chose to postpone earning his own martial value to observe her techniques first. As Su Hong peered through the observation window into the simulated forest environment, he was utterly astonished to see Xiao Nan gracefully descending from the sky toward a pack of black tigers. He marveled at this, recognizing that walking on air was a miraculous ability usually reserved for high-level Grand Masters, and realized it must be the unique power of a spirit master. With a gentle, glowing motion of her outstretched hand, Xiao Nan summoned her power. In an instant, several streaks of blinding, golden light surged forward, simultaneously piercing the skulls of 3 Tier 1 high-stage black tigers. Su Hong watched in awe as the beasts fell dead, pondering the nature of the mysterious flowing light. Suddenly, a massive, terrifying, bear-like creature surrounded by a red aura roared and tried to ambush Xiao Nan from behind. However, the beast was immediately halted in its tracks, its eyes widening in astonishment. Xiao Nan used her spiritual telekinesis to lift and immobilize the giant creature in midair, leaving Su Hong in awe of her ability to effortlessly restrain such a massive foe. With a swift wave of her arm, Xiao Nan sent the golden light piercing cleanly through the suspended beast's head, killing it instantly. As Su Hong observed the battle intently, she finally understood that the deadly streaks of light were, in fact, daggers being controlled remotely by her mind. Trembling with a blend of excitement and realization, Su Hong concluded that a spirit master's ability to walk on air, bind enemies, and telekinetically control weapons from afar made them incredibly overpowered, enabling them to easily defeat ordinary martial artists. The group of trainees, accompanied by Su Hong, stared in disbelief at the observation monitor as someone questioned the sudden appearance of a massive weapon on the screen. The feed displayed Xiaohonan standing before a colossal snake beast, effortlessly conjuring a giant glowing golden sword from thin air. With a swift, commanding downward swing of her arm, the massive golden blade descended, slicing the giant snake in two. Witnessing this impossible feat, Su Hong was utterly perplexed. He recalled that she hadn't been carrying any weapon earlier and concluded that a physical sword of that size would weigh several tons, making it far too heavy to handle so effortlessly. Joining the conversation, Lin Xingyi casually approached the group while fanning himself. He calmly explained that the giant sword was not a physical weapon, but rather a highly advanced A-rank martial skill exclusive to spirit masters. Upon hearing this, the crowd was astonished that yet another A-rank skill had been unveiled. Someone turned to Lin Xingyi, inquiring how all the top geniuses seemed to possess such rare techniques, and speculated whether Wang Tiantuo had one as well. Lin Xingyi confidently affirmed that Wang Tiantuo possessed an incredibly powerful A-rank offensive martial skill, prompting the surrounding trainees to despairingly label the elites as heaven-defying monsters. Instead of feeling daunted by the significant resource gap, Su Hong broke into an eager smile. Recognizing that the training camp was brimming with elite, A-rank martial skills ready to be absorbed by his system, he happily concluded that attending the camp was the best decision he could have made. The trainees observed the monitor as Wang Tiantuo annihilated a Tier 1 high-level ferocious beast with a single punch. They soon recognized that the elite trainee was relying solely on his tremendous physical strength rather than employing any martial skills. With nothing to learn from Wang Tiantuo at that moment, Su Hong turned away, opting to seek another opportunity to learn from him later. Inspired by Xiaonan's display of power, Su Hong opened his system panel to review his attributes. He noticed that his spirit stat was only 26.5. To become a spirit master, he needed this stat to exceed 100, leaving him 73.5 points short. Realizing he needed exactly 735 martial value points to close the gap, he gathered blue energy in his hand and eagerly decided to embark on a massive monster-killing spree to earn the required points. Meanwhile, the student in the suit and the rugged student continued to secretly follow him. They observed as Su Hong entered one of the testing arenas within the ferocious beast room. Seeing that the rest of the camp was entirely focused on Wang Tiantuo and Xiaonan's training, the two vengeful trainees realized that no one would intervene. They seized this opportunity to corner Su Hong and mercilessly attack him. As they readied themselves to ambush him, the rugged student suddenly shouted in alarm, prompting the suited student to nervously hush him to avoid being discovered. The rugged student gestured toward the large observation monitor mounted above the facility's entrance.